Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kokona, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI decals traveling back Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV Motocross National Champion, number 25, Cody Jansen.
Clay Millican is an NHRA national event winner. A goosebump moment that was 254 national events in the making.
Dalton, I miss you, but I knew you were riding with me today, buddy. That little man rides with me everywhere I go. And stop on that loud pedal, buddy.
What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm your host, Cody Jansen. This is episode 80 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, available for purchase at shop.csttires.com. And tonight, we have one of the most special episodes that we've ever recorded, featuring some of the best conversation we ever captured here at Digging Deep. As many of you know, Dalton Millican was a mainstay at the ATV Motocross Nationals for the better part of a decade, from 2007 to 2013. During that time, Dalton started as a beginner in the C class before ascending all the way to the AMA ATV Pro Class by the time he decided to step away from ATV racing. Dalton Millican is sadly unable to tell his own extremely unique story after tragically passing away in 2015. But thankfully, we have a very special guest to do the honors. The stories and memories shared in this episode will bring you from laughs to tears and everywhere in between. It's some of the greatest content that we've ever created. This episode is in loving memory of Dalton Millican, and joining us to proudly tell the story of his son and share a bit of his own story as well. And you'll learn that their two stories are quite connected, is six-time world champion top fuel drag racer Clay Millican. But first, let's quickly shout out all of our incredible partners. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Integrated Financial Concepts and their Safe to Race and Safe to Ride insurance programs, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, new sponsor Blenzall Oil. Welcome to the Digging Deep family, Blenzall. Stoked about that. And Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Their clippers rock, their nose hair trimmer is amazing, and the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer is next level. Outside the industry sponsors are rare in our sport, so help us keep Manscaped involved with Digging Deep and involved with ATV motocross as a whole long into the future. Manscaped's signature line is the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer that I rely on to keep my beard on point, the best nose hair trimmer ever created, and an array of goodies like deodorant, boxer briefs, a travel bag, and more. So check out Manscaped. I wish I would have sooner, and get 20% off with free shipping by using code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support all the great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. The 2022 season is here, and we both know you need parts and gear. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end, enabling you to help us out while purchasing the parts you need anyway. And did you know that you can buy OEM parts from Rocky Mountain ATVMC as well? Yep. Shipped conveniently straight to your door. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs. You can also find our Amazon widget on our homepage. So same concept. Click that Amazon logo on the right side of your screen, purchase whatever your heart desires, and that will help us out down the road. We can't thank you enough for that. No new donors to shout out this week, but if you're interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website. And major thanks to all of you who have donated. You guys freaking rock. Now it's showtime. The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep with Clay Millican right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Let's go. All right, guys, I have to say that I'm absolutely stoked to sit down with tonight's guest, brought to you by our friends at Rocky Mountain ATVMC. Click the Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com for all your gear and parts needs to kick off the 2022 season. I just recently used our link to purchase a few things for my new Blue Crew build, so be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC link on our website to help us out while you're ordering the parts that you need. I am so proud to welcome a motorsports icon to the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Say hello to six-time NHRA world champion Clay Millican. Clay, it's such an honor to be joined by you. Thank you so much for being here.
I tell you what, I'm super pumped to be here. And we were talking, before you click record, that when you had Mike Walsh on, I found the podcast. I am a podcast listener, and I have binge listened to all 77 of them. And what you're doing is amazing. It's incredible. A lot of the stories I had, kind of had an idea about, some of the big stories, but to hear, guys like, Joe Bird and John Natale talking about some of their battles while not doing it together, but separately on their own way of telling those stories, you name it, the guys you had on here, Mike Walsh obviously is a legend. And, that's, you can thank Mike for finding me. And then that had nothing to do with you asking me. That I don't know how that really come about, but I'm excited and pumped to be on here.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough. I mean, obviously it's an honor that you would want to listen to our stuff. I think that's so cool. I think that kind of touches on what we're going to get into here with the fact that you're still in tune with ATV motocross. I think that's awesome. But yeah, it had nothing to do with it. I mean, you were a guy that I had on my list of guys I wanted to talk to, but frankly, like I didn't know if you would want to do it. So I'm stoked that you're here. And for my ATV motocross listeners, I realize that not all of you will be well-versed in the drag racing world stuff. Frankly, I really wasn't either until I attended a few events on behalf of Valvoline in 2018 and 2019. But for my listeners, the voice that you're hearing on the other side of this interview, this conversation here, is a headline name, a main attraction at the NHRA events. Clay, you're like the John Natale, like you just mentioned. You're like John Natale. You're like the people's champ of professional drag racing.
Well, I appreciate that. I have done this I quit my real job in 1998. So I've been professionally drag racing, paying my bills since 1998. And, okay. We had a heck of a run on the IHRA side of things. And I do want to correct you on that because I've binge listened and I know,
okay.
On the SSI commercials, you say okay. 6-time NHRA champion. I'm the 6-time IHRA champion. Okay. And your listeners will understand that because it is the exact same thing as the ATVA and the WPSA. They did the exact same things, but they were, opposing companies.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I've won NHRA races and all that, but I haven't won a national championship there. But,
okay.
I've always been part of a smaller team, and I tie so many things into the motocross world. When people ask me about our team or whatever, I always say that, you got to think about it in motocross terms. I'm not part of a factory team, so to speak. There are some really, really large teams out there that we compete against every week. Mm-hmm. And we are the little team that every now and then we get up there and get that podium and maybe, stand on top of the podium. I mean, you and I are recording this just a couple days after I was on the second step of the podium, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I had a runner-up finish at Phoenix just this past weekend. And but yes, I keep up very much. We have a lot of ATV industry people that keep up with drag racing and, probably the number one connection, I've talked about Mike Walsh a lot already. Besides Mike is Ian Harris. I know is a sponsor of the show. And, Ian and I actually got connected through Dalton, and Ian is a huge part of my program and has been for years and years. If you tune in and watch any of the races or you're at the races, everything you see is SSI decals. I mean, and we do a lot of different, wraps on the car during the year, but our our trailers, the dragster, it's all Ian, and his team is amazing. I mean, they are unbelievable, because sometimes we have sponsorships that come up kind of last moment, and we need a car wrapped immediately. We actually have one of our chassis is at SSI, and we'll ship a body to them, and they can hang it on the chassis and they wrap it, and they're just amazing. You know, his team up there is, I don't want to start calling names because it's all of them, you know, but I work, you know, closely with Kelly and Ian, and they do the designs, they do everything. They're incredible people, and they're just great folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always thought that was so cool about what you do, whether, and I want to get into this, we'll probably get into it a little later. But you know, you run the Walsh logo, you have SSI all over your stuff. And I've always thought, like, what you do with SSI shows what they're capable of. You know, like, obviously people in our industry see, you know, their decals on, you know, a giant share of the graphics and the machines at the races, but you're really showcasing what they're capable of. You know, I mean, they're capable of anything. And like you said, I mean, me too. I mean, I'm nobody, you know, but Ian will prioritize my stuff, slam it together. You know, if it needs to be done overnight, he'll send me a proof at 4:00 in the morning. It's just those guys are the best, you know, and I've just loved to see that. And I assumed that Dalton was the connection, but just to see that, you know, even you at this big scale, you know, doing the drag race thing, this big setup, you know, that you have SSI all over your stuff. And what I was kind of trying to do there was set the stage or paint the picture for the people that haven't been to any of these events, because yes, like, you know, you call yourself, you're like a satellite team or whatever. You're not a factory supported team, quote unquote, but people love you. You know, there's just people that flock to your stuff. So I want to create the image of what it actually is. That, I mean, it's an honor for us to have you on the show right now, because there's people that would die to have this interaction with you in the drag race world.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, you know, like I said, I've done it for a very, very long time. I'm passionate about it. You know, this is all I do. I mean, I drive a top fuel dragster. You know, I can explain some of the numbers on those things, which are ridiculous. You know, they're the fastest accelerating vehicles on the planet. They go 0 to 100 miles an hour in less than 1 second. They actually go 100 miles an hour in 0.8. 0 to 100 in less than a second, 0 to 200 in 2 seconds, and 0 to 300 in barely over 3 seconds, you know. So I've never, you know, I've never ran through the whoop section at Redbud or anything like that, you know, I never did do that. But what I do, I call it the ultimate roller coaster. You know, you are literally being shot out of a cannon driving one of these things. And you know, I appreciate that, you know, people like watching what I do. And I appreciate that they, you know, if you don't watch drag racing, you know, it is actually the number 2 motorsport in the United States behind NASCAR. So, I mean, you know, it is a pretty big sport.
It's a big deal. Yeah. The next thing I wanted to touch on there was seeing it in person. There is no way not to appreciate it, because I mean, the way it shakes your insides, it's captivating. I had never seen it, like, not even on a local level. I had never seen it till I was there and got to stand, you know, right next to where you guys are staged and be right there for it. Covered me in rubber, you know, ruined my clothes. And,
we call those Goodyear freckles.
Okay. Yeah. That's exactly how it is. I have hats that's, you know, still to this day are covered in it. Yep. And there's nothing like it. I mean, I was bit by the bug there, and it was something I was never into. It was just something I'd never seen, you know, and I can see why there's guys like Mike Walsh and people like that in our industry that love yours too, because man, there's just something special about it. There's nothing like it.
It is literally earth shaking. I mean, you know, there have been times where they've brought, you know, seismographs out and they literally do shake the earth. I mean, it's that powerful, you know, the acceleration and the explosion when, you know, my little hashtag, which is actually a Dalton hashtag. We can talk about that some. Stomp on the loud pedal.
Okay.
But when you stomp on the loud pedal, it literally does shake the earth. I mean, it's one of those things you've got to come out and see them in person to appreciate watching them on television. You know, I mean, the television numbers are huge on these things and they do really well, but until, like you just said, you went out and experienced what that's like, because it is not just how fast they go. It is, this is a line from my daddy. Explaining nitro cars is like explaining rock and roll music. It is something you got to hear it, feel it, and experience it.
Yeah, you got to feel it. You're exactly right. So the one question that I've never got a chance to ask anybody, on your level. So do you have to like train your eyes to be able to perceive stuff at that speed? I'm assuming it's not something I'm assuming you just got to like go through it to kind of train your body to react like that.
You really do. But it's amazing. Like, I've made thousands of runs now. I've done this for 20 plus years.
Right.
And, people ask me all the time, what does it feel like? Well, I cannot give you anything to explain what it feels like, because I've done it for so long. I've had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of cool things. I mean, I've jumped out of airplanes. Probably, the one thing people always talk about is, fighter jets. Well, I had the opportunity a few years ago. I rode with the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, and even that does not compare to the Top Fuel car. Now, granted, when they turn the airplane, that is unbelievable. The G-forces are incredible, but it's not straight line acceleration. That acceleration in a fighter jet pushes you downward. In other words, it pushes on your butt, pushes on your backside, where we all know, driving a car, when you stand on the throttle or even leaving the gate on a quad, it pulls you backwards. It pushes on your chest. So no, I've never found anything like it. But your question about your eyes. So the first big bunch of runs you make in a Top Fuel car, it is just overwhelming. The acceleration is so fast, your mind cannot keep up with what's going on. And so the best comparison I can have, especially for the motocross world, is when you watch, whether it be a quad crashing or you see a car wreck, you're like, man, did you see that? It happens so fast. But when you're the one having that crash, if you keep your eyes open, it takes forever. It's like, I'm casing this jump. I'm fixing to go over the handlebars. That all is a process that your brain slows down. And that's what happens in the Top Fuel car. Like I say, it takes quite a few runs, but eventually, your body, it's that fight or flight thing. It's your brain taking care of your butt. That's what it is. It's your mind is capable after a little while of slowing these things down. And it's no different than, you think about when you started riding a quad to what you are right now, it's way different. It's easier. It comes, your body becomes capable of doing things that it couldn't do when you first started. And it's the same thing with the acceleration of the Top Fuel cars. I can do things in that car now that, when I first started, I would crash the car.
Of course. Yeah. That's what I figured is you kind of train your body over time. And then the other thing with all athletics is you find a way to kind of get in a zone, right? And everything slows down. That's what top athletes talk about. That's kind of what you're touching on too. Everything just slows down a little bit and you're able to perceive things at a level where, you can make, decisions and do what you have to do to compete at the top level like you are.
Yep. I mean, what is that line? Being able to maintain focus when everything around you is coming apart, or however that is, that's kind of what it's like. There's so many wild and crazy things happening, in your peripheral that you can just kind of tone them out and hit your target, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember touching on these couple events that I went to of yours. And I remember being astounded by all the buzz, like I kind of touched on, astounded by all the people, astounded by all the hype around, your followers and stuff like that, the way that the series sells you basically, because you're somebody that so many people cheer for. And it's funny because the people I was traveling with at the time looked at me like I discovered fire when I quote unquote said I knew Clay Millican. It's funny how the ATV motocross family can make this world feel so small, right? I mean, our sport isn't that big, but it connects so many people and so many different, backgrounds and stuff like we just touched on. And that's why we're here, isn't it? ATVs and ATV racing will always hold a special place in your heart.
Oh, 100%. No doubt about it. It's completely, all on Dalton, because it certainly was not my thing. I mean, from the time I could go to, get behind the wheel of a car. It wasn't really a race car when I started, but that was all I ever thought of, was going fast, and Dalton, for whatever reason, he always seemed to have older friends. His friends were all older. He just didn't really hang out with kids his age.
Okay.
And there was a group of kids. I mean, they were older than him, but there were a group of kids that were, kind of into the freestyle thing. These guys, they, all the wavos and all the, all the jumping and, all that sort of stuff. And
okay.
I don't even really know how it come about, but somehow, some way. So Dalton has an older brother named Cale, named after Cale Yarborough, the NASCAR driver, by the way.
Okay. Legend.
Yes. Dalton essentially convinced me, and we bought 2 300 Hondas, the manual shift, just 2 little
300 EXs. Yep.
300 EXs. Exactly. And I mean, when I was a kid, I had a 3-wheeler. I never raced, but I had a 3-wheeler. We lived near the Mississippi River. I guess I need to back up. So we lived near the Mississippi River. We got a lot of good places to ride, and this group of kids that I'm talking about that Dalton hung out with, one of them's name is Logan Tate, and his parents own a pretty large amount of land on a creek that runs into the Mississippi River. And so they always had these good riding spots, and they eventually ended up with a freestyle ramp and a big pile of dirt, and so that was kind of the start of our 4-wheelers. And
okay,
Dalton's path to 4-wheeler racing is probably unlike most kids. We didn't start on the little quads. We didn't do any of that stuff. We didn't even know anything about ATV racing at all.
Okay.
But I don't want to mess up any of your questions. I'm kind of
no, you're good. So where I was going to go with that is, Dalton was a mainstay on the national scene for a number of years there. And yeah, like we can dive right into his story. I was going to ask, how, so it's cool how you're still connected to the sport to this day. I guess even almost backing up before that. So the reason why I wanted to get you on and I invited you on when I asked you to come on was, and again, frankly, I didn't know if you were going to want to do it. I know obviously you're a busy guy, but you posted a photo of one of Dalton's old quads on your Instagram and you captioned it every now and then. It does a fella some good to ride a good running quad. That sure brought a smile to my face to see, that thing was obviously up and running and, alive and well. And I was going to ask you before we got into all that story, how often you get a chance to do that?
A day like today would be a good day. So there's a story on that particular quad. So, I mean, obviously, and we'll get into all this stuff. At one point we had a lot of quads, okay. I mean, we typically kept, I'm going to say 3 to 4 all the time. That's what we did. And so that particular quad was and I don't want to really mess up our story, but how we get there. But that particular quad, he won the 2011, 450A championship.
Yep.
Well, it went from a race bike to a practice bike, and it got beat to death. You know what I mean? It just, everybody out there knows practice bikes get freaking hammered. Mm-hmm. And I want to say this real quick. People always had this, and they still do somewhat. They have this perception that because I race and you can watch me on TV, that I'm this wealthy person. I'm not. I mean, we ran stuff that Dalton probably shouldn't be running. We just kept repairing it and fixing it and whatever. But that bike got beat to death. And when we sold everything, I kept that chassis, and for some unknown weird reason, we have a shed out back. We call it Donna's She Shed. It's where the lawnmowers and stuff. It has an attic in it.
Okay.
And in that attic was the plastic from the year he won the championship. It's beat up, it's melted, it's hammered.
Yeah.
But it is the exact plastic with the same wash, bandana style looking, decals on it, the SSI decals.
Yep.
And one winter during the off season, I had kept telling everybody I was just going to hang that in my shop. I have a shop behind the house back here. It's not the race car shop, but all I wanted to do was hang that bike up. He won the championship on it. Mm-hmm. Well, I had one motor that was super fast, and we can get into some of that too.
Yeah.
That when I sold everything, I kept that motor put aside. I had a really nice set of custom axis shocks I had kind of put aside, and I never intended for that bike to run.
Okay.
But I got bored during the wintertime, and I'm like, you know what? I got the motor. I got a set of shocks. Well, the next thing you know, this thing is running. And so once every couple of months, I would say,
Okay.
I crank this thing up and I ride it around the neighborhood. And I don't take it out in the dirt. Again, I could run down to Sugar Creek. It's right down the road, and I could ride it. But I've got side-by-sides, and I do have a job I have to do, so I don't need to break anything.
Right.
And I've got a great story about that with the 300 EXs that I will tell.
Okay.
So it's super fast. This bike, I'm telling you, is ridiculously fast. I'm a drag racer. I love horsepower. And
Yep.
so it has a 72 horsepower engine in it. So, I mean,
She rips.
It rips. And and this is kind of a side note, because I think when I posted that, it has a set of TT tires on it. The bike's the way it sits right now. So Daryl Rath, everybody knows Rath Racing, provides Nerf bars and a lot of cool stuff. Chad Weenan still runs them to this day.
A lot of us do.
Yeah, a lot of people. I saw Daryl. He came to the race in Brainerd, Minnesota, and I had said something about I got that bike running, and I said, I'm killing the tires on it because all I do is ride it in the neighborhood, up and down the road and on the asphalt. And
Okay.
I get home from a race. There's a couple of giant boxes here at the house. Daryl sent me rims and tires for that thing. He said, here you go. Here's your set of tires to run up and down the street with. So that's where those come from. Brand new wheels and tires. That guy just sent them to me for that bike. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. That did stand out to me. I assumed you must have been staying on the asphalt because yes, I saw the TT tires and wheels on there. So I'm assuming that you were staying off the dirt. But that's awesome. That's it. Like I said, it made me smile because you were enjoying, what we all enjoy. I just liked to see that. But yeah, we can resume his story, then Dalton's story, because I'm assuming Dalton, and you were starting to go there, he could have done anything. I'm sure he could have done any kind of racing that he, wanted to do. So why ATVs? You were starting to go there. So how did you guys find yourselves or Dalton drawn to the ATV motocross track?
Yep. So like I say, this group of young men, like I say, Logan Tate's one of them in particular, that they were into the freestyle kind of thing. And of course, being the racer that I am, I don't even want to I'm the world's worst with dates and times and that sort of thing. But Dalton was a little guy. I mean, I'm a little guy. I'm, 5'7", 140 pounds right now to this day. I'm still a little guy. And well, we find out somehow, some way, whether it be through the local guy that helped us keep Dalton's bikes running, that is a huge part of this story, a guy named Jeff Maxey, and y'all actually have a connection as well that you probably the wheels are turning right now. How do I know this name, Jeff Maxey, Maximum Cycle?
Okay.
So Jackie Meadows lives near here.
Okay.
Jeff Maxey helped keep his stuff running.
Jackie going. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I know y'all have a big connection to Jackie Meadows as well.
Yes, we do. Yes.
So anyway, Dalton, is riding the heck out of these 300s, and I am too. I'm going to Sugar Creek. We're down there riding. The only thing that I ever really did was tons of drag racing. That was mine and Dalton's thing. There was this kind of a section down at Sugar Creek, 300 feet area, kind of a quad length kind of drag race thing. We just run the wheels off it. And I learned how to do wheelies, slow wheelies, which I think are the coolest thing.
Yes, they are.
I can't do them on a freaking motocross quad for crap on the little tire.
Oh, well, it's 74 horse. It's not made for that.
Yeah, exactly.
72 horse.
Yeah, it's something about the bigger tires, like on the 300, I can do them, but on the 450, I can't. But anyway.
Yeah.
So we spent tons of times just, absolutely drag racing the heck out of these 300s. And then Dalton's like, I want a 450, you know, and he's like 14 years old or whatever, and weighs, you know, 80 pounds or whatever. And I'm like, well, you know, let's don't just get a 450. Let's do something different here. And because of these older guys all riding 450s, he just kept on and on and on. I got to have a 450.
Right.
And when he finally convinced me and Donna, okay, maybe we'll get him a 450. Then he starts in on, he wants a kickstart. I'm like, you can't freaking start it. You're not big enough. So we end up at a Honda dealership, and this was how this went. So they got, you know, the electric start sitting there. They got a kickstart sitting there. And he's like, this is the one, this is it. And I'm like, you can't even start it. This is the one, this is what I want. So I said, if you can start it, it's yours. And dadgum, somehow, some way he did. So we ended up, you know, and it was all he could do to start the thing.
Of
you know,
course.
He didn't big enough. You know, he wasn't big enough. And
right, yeah.
And Jeff Maxey, again, Maximum Cycle down there, you know, through him, we found out there's this arena cross race in Memphis, just a little local arena cross deal. It's a traveling circuit, and I'm drawing a blank, and I should know the name of this arena cross series that kind of runs, you know, in the southern part of the country here.
Okay.
So we went to that with balloon tires and no nothing, and it was terrible. And he turned over, you know, 14 times, and it just kind of grew from that. But you know, I'm gonna blame again, you know, Jeff Maxey at Maximum Cycle and a friend of his named Keith Parker that we ended up eventually, you know, doing a couple more of these arena cross things, figuring out you got to have A-arms and, you know, swing arm, and we ended up with actually some of y'all's stuff through Jackie Meadows on his bike.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
You know, but we didn't know anything. A Top Fuel dragster does not have shocks, so I'm useless. I'm useless when it comes to that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but we ended up going, you know, my first ever national, Dalton's first ever national, we went to Pell City. And we had no clue what we were doing, and but the hook was set from there. You know, that was it. I don't know if you looked up any of the results or whatever. I think that was 2007.
I think it was 2007. Yes, because he ran a number of races that year. I from what I could tell and from what I could remember, I didn't think that you guys dabbled in the youth stuff at all, and you already obviously said that. And yeah, so he raced that year, 2007, a number of races, I think 5. And so he was in the C class, and he actually won balances. He won balance that year. He went 1-1 in 450C. Were you able to be at that one?
I was actually there, and I'm gonna tell you, I absolutely embarrassed him to death because I think I may have been more excited than he was. And I literally like ran. So balance was concrete start, if you remember.
Yes, I do. Yep.
So all the dads had a broom to sweep off the starting line.
Yep.
So when he crossed the finish line, I'm literally like sprinting to the freaking podium with a broom in my hand, you know, and I totally embarrassed him, you know, but yeah, that was pretty cool. That was a fun win at balances. And, you know, that's actually, I guess that's really our closest one. Bowling Green is like 60 miles from here. So
sure. Yep.
But yeah, the hook was definitely set at that point. It's like, hey, this kid can actually do this, you know?
So the one question that came up to me while I was researching things of this time period was, you have to be 16 to race a 450.
Yeah, he might not have been 16.
I was going to say, the math doesn't add up to me, but that's funny. So how did you guys navigate that? I'm assuming that was a thing, and you already touched on it a little bit, but you obviously weren't able to attend all the races with your busy schedule and conflicting events and stuff. So did you basically go to everyone that, you know, you were free to go to? Is that how you guys managed it over the years?
Yeah, and that's how it was initially. And I mentioned a guy named Keith Parker. So Keith Parker was an adult, you know, a for real adult, where Dalton didn't even have a driver's license. Well, I guess I need to add a little bit of context. So that was, what year was balance? We were
2007. 2007. Yep.
So 2000, 2008, we got a little more serious about it. You know, the race team, for whatever reason, had a box truck, and Keith Parker took Dalton to a few races here and there in 2007. And after he won that, you know, being the racing guy that I am, I'm like, crap, we're going all out. We're going freaking motocross racing, you know, and we're seeing all the factory teams out there, you know, and I'm, you know, a lucky person in that here I am making a living racing, and I'm seeing all these factory deals out there. You know, you got, you know, Joe Bird on the Honda. You got all, you know, all the factory teams are there. There's big money out there.
Suzuki, Kawasaki, multiple Can-Am teams. I mean, Polaris was in the mix, and it's hard for people that weren't around back then. It's hard to even describe to them that it was like one of your races now. That's how many semis there were, or it was like a dirt bike outdoor national. I mean, there was that many semis for ATV teams.
Exactly. So 07, I was sponsored by Torco Race Fuels, and Torco Race Fuels was actually the sponsor of Kevin Windham in Supercross.
Okay.
So, you know, we did a handful of races in 07. Dalton and Keith Parker used this box truck that we actually had it wrapped, you know, so he did a box truck, and, you know, and I went to a couple of the races as well.
Okay.
And so the guy that owned Torco Race Fuels, this is one of those things where, I don't know what you call it, fork in the road, whatever. It was a serious sit down family discussion. So because he's sponsoring Kevin Windham in the Supercross series, he offered, I wanted to buy a bike from Keith Little. Keith Little had a bike for sale, you know, a factory Honda deal, you know, really nice race bike. Keith Little is known for super nice bikes, titanium bolts, all the stuff, all the cool stuff. He's a Lone Star racing guy, you know, and so it's all decked out.
Very meticulous too.
Very meticulous, you know, and so I was telling the guy that owned Torco Race Fuels, a guy named Evan Knoll, that I wanted to purchase this bike. And, you know, Dalton seems to be like really kind of turning away from the freestyle kind of stuff, you know, knocking teeth out and all that sort of stuff to he wants to do this. And he's like, I'll buy that bike for him. I'm like, no, I'm not asking you to buy him this bike. Well, it's $10,000. I mean, that's a lot of freaking money. We're talking 07. You know?
Heck yeah, it is. Yeah.
$10,000. I mean, and now granted, she's a full-on factory bike. It's nice. Mm-hmm. And he also tells me, he's like, here's what I want to do. I want to sponsor Dalton, and I want you to homeschool him, and I will give you $100,000 a year for Dalton to go motocross racing. $100,000. I've never told this story publicly. By the way.
Okay.
Enough time has passed now that
doesn't matter. Let's air it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, you know. So I'm like, holy moly, $100,000. So I go and sit down with Donna, just me and her, because you know what Dalton's answer is going to be. Of course. Let's do it. You know. Well, me and Donna made the decision. Dalton really liked school. He liked the he liked the interaction with kids. He loved people. You know, he loved school. I'm not saying he was a good student. He loved the social aspects of school.
Of course, yes.
So we said no. We didn't want to do it. Okay. But let's roll into 08 now. And me and Donna went and borrowed essentially $100,000. We bought a brand new Dodge Dually, brand spanking new. We ordered a race trailer. It was half garage, you know, half living quarters. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, $50,000 Dually, a $40,000 trailer. And we special ordered this stuff. And again, people think that I make a gazillion dollars. NHRA guys don't make NASCAR money. I'm just going to tell you that. But were investing.
But that's what everybody thinks when they see you on TV. That's what people think. Yes.
But I have this belief, you know, that maybe he's got a shot. You know, again, you know, I'm new to motocross, and I'm seeing all these factory rides, and I know, you know, I know Keith Little, and I met Joe Bird, and I know they're making good money, you know. Yes. So I'm like, we've started late, but if we're going to do this, let's do it, you know. So this trailer comes in that we had ordered. It came in March, I must say. We're loading this thing late one night. We're excited. I can't remember what race we're going to. Where would we be going in March on the schedule?
Somewhere down there, whether it was Georgia
or somewhere,
Georgia or Alabama or somewhere like that. Yeah. At the time there was a Florida race. I don't know if there would have been one in 07. There was Gatorback at the time. Texas, maybe one of them down there.
Yeah, this was 08, but we're loading the trailer 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I get a phone call that Torco Race Fuels is no more. You're out of a job. You have nothing. And I might also add that during this very same time frame, I convinced Donna to quit her job. And this goes back into my story a little bit.
Yeah.
I quit my job in 98 and went for 2 years without a job, just chasing racing. That's what I was doing.
Sure.
I convinced her to quit her job and come to work for the race team. Well, we get a phone call while we're loading up Dalton's trailer. He's like pumped up, super excited. He's got this cool new trailer and, we're going racing and he knows we're serious about it. You're done. Torco Race Fuels is no more. They're out of business. It's done. So kind of screwed up 08 for us. I wish I really did a better job kind of researching 08.
Well, I'll tell you. So that 2007 year, which was just testing the waters for you guys, he raced 5 races. And I wondered to myself when I looked up why he only went to 3 races in 2008, but you're telling us exactly why.
Daddy had no job.
That news comes up and slaps you in the face. And you're not going to be able to travel the country. And it's funny. The one thing I do want to touch on before we keep going is, and you won't have heard this yet. I know I've touched on it on some other episodes, but our episode with Dana Creech is coming out today. And we were talking about that time period where so many of us, and you're kind of touching on the same thing that my family had going on at the time. So in 2007, I was, a prominent youth rider, and we thought we were only a couple years away from having a factory ride as well, because everybody and their brother had a factory ride. There was tons of factory support, even if it was just, bikes and maybe a little funding or some parts or whatever, but you didn't have to be a pro. There was guys racing the A class that had factory affiliation. So I'm thinking, give us a year or two, or I should say my parents were thinking, give us a year or two and we're going to have that factory affiliation. And I was just telling Dana to be amateur or a youth rider at that time. They sucked us in, and nobody knew that what was going to happen, but it sucked us in. And then, a decade later, we're still hoping and wishing that something's going to happen. And, obviously there wasn't even anything left at the time. It was all dried up, but it was tough to be, to be that in that kind of, like you said, fork in the road period there. And then you kind of get on the path and then it dries up. There wasn't anything at the end of that rainbow.
Yep. But that's why, again, I'm glad I actually got a little bit of it. I printed off a couple things, but
sure. Yeah.
I was heartbroken. Not only, here I am out of a job, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to continue finding rides in Top Fuel cars,
of course. But I'm assuming that you're heartbroken for your son,
Yeah. Here we are with this brand new truck, brand new trailer. And I have to tell him we can't go. I don't know how we're going to pay the freaking mortgage,
right.
At the end of the month, and
right.
So, it obviously it all worked out. I'm still out there and still doing it, but
but that also changes the whole narrative. You're talking about that, and there was, I believe, this vision or this thought that, Dalton had everything, at that time in the years that followed this, and right now you're telling people that it is almost totally the opposite direction where, hey, we can't even go to the races because I don't know what the future looks like for this whole family.
Yeah. Because if dad ain't racing, ain't nobody eating.
right. Exactly.
That's it. But, I got stuff put back together for me. The race team continued.
We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. Welcome to the team, two-time champ Joel Hetrick, who dropped the biggest news of the offseason when he announced his move to CST Tires. The CST takeover has been gaining momentum over the past several seasons, and now Joel Hetrick and his Phoenix Racing teammate Jeffrey Rastrelli are the most recent additions. The Pulse MXR tire has helped lead riders like Thomas Brown to race wins and 3 consecutive Quad Cross of Nations titles, Nick Janusa to the Pro Class podium, myself Cody Jansen as I rode my Pulse MXR fronts and white label soft compound rears to back-to-back national championships in the Junior 25 Plus class, and the most recent additions have us thinking a Pro Class national championship is on the horizon for CST tires. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Nick Janusa, myself, and so many others are believers in CST tires. Are you? CST Tires, where passion meets the ground. You already know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. Whether it's second all-time winningest, 7-time and reigning ATVMX Pro Class national champion Chad Wienen, or 6-time and current XC1 Pro ATV GNCC national champion Walker Fowler, it's clear the podium-proven Yamaha YFC 450R is the winning choice of sport ATVs. This unprecedented success for the YFC 450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the undeniable fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has created a Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Better yet, Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program is back and even stronger for 2021, meaning Yamaha riders are about to cash in on higher payouts and more prize opportunities, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com, follow them on social media at Yamaha Outdoors, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. SSI Decals is a name synonymous with ATV racing, synonymous with big-time success, and absolutely synonymous with the best-looking decals around. An offshoot of their parent company that was established in 1947, SSI first took shape from owner Ian Harris's passion for ATVs. With what started as just making numbers and decals for riders like Chad Wienen, the company quickly took off, and today you couldn't imagine ATV motocross without SSI decals. The graphics maker and designer now supports all the top teams in ATV motocross, as well as teams and riders racing GNCC, Work Series, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Canadian Pro Motocross, short course off-road trucks, UTVs, snowcross, and, oh yeah, 6-time world champion top fuel drag racer Clay Millican. No project is too big or too small for SSI decals, making your identity stick with championship level graphics. Head over to SSIDecals.com today and then maybe call the doctor because things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their wide range of championship-winning chains. From the street to the track and everywhere in between, DID chains are designed to give you the optimal riding experience with great performance and increased chain life. Consistent to the core, pick up your box of reliability today. DID, what drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Numira Technologies. Since 2001, Numira has led the charge in the ATV and side-by-side market, covering more applications than anyone else in the industry. Numira's advanced piston technology uses a NASA-exclusive aluminum alloy that helps to reduce expansion rates, that allows for tighter tolerances, and leads to higher overall engine performance for your machine. For more information about Numira's wide offerings of pistons, rings, gaskets, and industry-leading top-end repair kits, visit your local dealer or online at www.numira.com. Numira Technologies, pistons with an attitude. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals like rods and cylinders, all the way down to suspension parts and bearing kits. Bronco is your hard part source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com. Forworks Carbon's innovative lightweight products include top-notch seat covers, carbon fiber, and plastic hoods, gas tank covers, exhaust shields, shock guards, and much more. Whether you have an ATV, UTV, or snowmobile, Forworks has the goodies that will improve your ride and make you salivate. We trust Forworks for increased function and a sexier look, and you should too. Forworks Carbon. always working hard to bring high quality and innovative parts to the market. Check them out today at fwcarbon.com.
I don't even remember what 09 looked like for him, but
yeah. So that was one thing I was going to ask about. So, now I know way more context. But what I thought was cool, and obviously I didn't know all the hurdles and adversity that you guys were dealing with, but I thought that it was cool that, Dalton has this, this world famous dad in the racing world. And he did it just like so many people did, where he comes in at the entry level. He's racing C class to start, and he just starts progressing. So he ran C class and raced those 5 events in 2007. He won that overall in Kentucky. In 2008, he only raced a few events. I believe it was 3. He was still in the C class. And then that next year, 2009, he jumped up and dabbled in the A class for a few races. So that was one thing I wanted to ask about. Do you remember, was there a conversation had like, hey, we're going to race A class from C class, or what was the thinking there?
It was stupidity on my part for giving into a kid that was a good talker. I've already told you that he got a kickstart bike and he couldn't hardly kick the thing over,
Yeah.
Okay. He wasn't fast enough. We didn't follow the path that we should have
of natural progression.
Yes. We just didn't follow that, and I don't know why, I really, really don't, other than, he's like, that's what I want to do. And he convinced me, and then I got guys with experience that Keith Parker and Jeff Maxey, they're like, yes, he's got talent, but you don't need to do that. But we did it anyway. That was just really on my part, giving in to my kid, But again, I don't know ATV motocross. If we were going drag racing, he would have been in a junior dragster and slowly moved up from that point.
Right.
And I gotta say that's one thing, Dalton, yes, he could. It would have been so easy. It'd been way easier on me and Donna if he wanted to go drag racing, but
of course it's the world,
yeah, exactly. He just didn't want to be that kid that followed right behind me, because he already called it at school that, Dalton's rich, he didn't want to do that. He wanted to do it his way. And I appreciated that, actually. While it was hard for us because we didn't know what we were doing, but he wanted to do it the way he wanted to do it. And again, he was a good talker and convinced us that we can go from C class winning 1 race to the A class where we had no chance.
Right. We're going A class racing. And I think that's actually a cool story to kind of air, because maybe some other people can learn from that a little bit, just because I've always told people if you're on the line about moving up to A class or staying in B or moving up to B class or jumping B class, I mean, whatever, question you're asking yourself, you can never go back. Like it takes some lobbying and stuff to jump to A class and then decide, hey, like I bit off more than I can chew. Now I got to lobby to the AMA that I belong in B class instead. He made it work eventually. Like it all works out for him, but there's nothing wrong with racing B class and being competitive. What I will say though, is there are people that think, hey, I'm going to move up a little quicker and race with faster guys, and that's how I'm going to learn. And some people do learn that way, but you also, Dalton stuck it out. Dalton was hard-headed. He was going to figure it out, but there's some people that go out there, race the A class a little bit, get beat down, and then quit. And I mean, that for the sport's sake, like nobody wants to see that.
Right. And I mean, I need to go back a little bit. In 2008, we had, before we got that phone call that we were out of business,
sure,
I had paid for him to go to the Joe Bird quad riding school, like most every kid.
Like all of us. Yeah.
All of us. Yeah. Yeah. I literally had paid for that. I had paid my upfront. I can't remember how it works. You pay a deposit, blah, 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 whatever.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So Union City is only about less than 100 miles from where I'm at right now.
Okay.
And so I remember probably literally the next day I had to call. I talked to Heather Bird, like I told her what happened. Of course, they're in the racing world. They get it. So yeah. I said, keep the deposit. It wasn't that much, like $100 or whatever it was,
Right.
And we ended up going, and that was a huge turning point for Dalton. Joe Bird has an amazing school. like he truly, truly does. He has an amazing school, but he was also one that you don't need to go ride A class yet. But anyway,
right.
That's kind of just part of the Dalton being Dalton kind of thing. But, through that, there was another guy that is certainly, been a big part of the motocross world that we met, and that's Travis Moore. Travis also lives less than 100 miles, and Dalton spent a lot of time riding with him. So he was getting to ride with fast people, but he still wasn't ready for A class. I mean, that's just all there is to it. But
right.
And I want to go ahead and throw this out here because I just said Travis Moore, and it's kind of how my brain works. If something pops up, I better tell it or I'll forget it.
I feel the same way when I'm having these conversations. So go right ahead.
So to this day, Travis Moore, I hate you because of you, I became the fastest clutch changing dad in the pit area because he taught Dalton how to ride with never letting off the throttle and doing it all with the clutch.
Just feathering the clutch.
100%. That's how he learned how to ride. Was not from the Joe Bird quad riding school. That was from Travis Moore.
Okay.
Travis, absolutely. And that's just how Dalton rode.
Sure.
And it was, when he did start getting faster and faster, it literally was a clutch per moto, which brings up another name that become, one of my dearest friends, and that's Wayne Henson.
Okay. Yep.
And you talked about the Walsh decal on my helmet. To this day, there's still the Henson H is on the front of my helmet.
Yep. I was going to talk about that too. But those clutches smell up the shop real quick.
Yes.
It's potent.
Yes. And it didn't matter if we did an arena cross race. After one moto, I was putting a clutch in. That's Travis's fault.
Hey, I had that problem when I was younger too. And Dad said, hey, we're going to have to quit. We're going to have to take out a loan because I can't afford to be putting these clutches in after every moto. So I had to figure it out.
Oh man. We learned again, having the race team, I had access to some mills and lathes or whatever. And we built a tool for flattening back out the steels for the clutches. And I know what the measurements were. I knew what I could get away with. That part was like drag racing. I understand how thick a clutch plate needs to be.
Yeah.
So, I had a surface table for checking. So I was able to reuse some of this stuff, but we did spend a lot of money on clutch parts. And thank goodness Wayne Henson took pity on me and helped me out as much as he could. I didn't get them all. I don't want people to think Wayne was sending me everything I needed. He wasn't. But he was definitely helping us out.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So getting back to the story. So 2009, he jumps up to the A class there. And then by 2010, he's competitive in the A class. He finished 3rd and 4th in the national championship that season. I'm assuming, he's riding with these faster guys, and I'm assuming eventually that just paid off. He became one of those faster guys by riding with those fast guys on the regular. And I guess I should have remembered the Travis Moore part, but I knew that he was connected with Joe Bird and some of those fast guys down by you in that Tennessee area. I just remember being part of that kind of pack, and that makes sense that eventually, he was able to, pretty quickly when you think, he's in the C class in 2007 and, dabbling in C class in 2008 yet, jumps up to the baptized by fire, I guess, in the A class in 2009. And then by 2010, he's right in the mix.
Yeah. And this is, again, I'm horrible with dates and memory. I think he won his first A class race in 2010 at Loretta Lynn's.
I think I saw that too. Yep.
And this is one of those things. So, obviously we had talked about, we lost Dalton, whatever, and we can cover that. I'm not avoiding that, but I think that Dalton, and I got a great story about him winning Loretta Lynn's in the A class.
Okay.
That was August 13th of 2010 is when he won Loretta's.
Okay.
And that is actually the same date that Dalton passed away on.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is just, I don't believe in coincidences. In Hebrew language, there is no word for coincidence, believe it or not.
Okay.
But anyway, I got to tell the story of his first A class win. And I'm almost positive it was 2010 at Loretta Lynn's.
Please do. Yeah.
So I was on an airplane coming home. Jeff Maxey, done mention him a lot. Jeff was there helping. It was him, Jeff, and Donna, and he won Moto 1, I do believe. And they had a huge rainstorm. And all I know is before I get on the airplane, I find out that it had rained, and Jeff was trying to decide, am I going to put big tires on or not? That was like the last thing I knew.
That's always the debate we have in ATV motocross. You know, is it muddy enough?
Yes. You know, so I'm on the airplane and I am freaking nervous dad. I'm like, oh my goodness, he can win Loretta Lynn's, you know, and last phone call, literally like on the runway, you know, they cut your phones off. They were way worse about it back then than they are now. But
yes,
last thing I know is Jeff can't decide whether to put big tires on or not. And so when the plane gets out of the clouds and I feel safe enough to not get in trouble, I turn my phone on and I'm just staring at my phone, waiting for a voicemail to pop up.
Okay.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. Cause at that time, you know, we couldn't like access the internet as easy on our phones and stuff back then.
There was no access on
the
plane, you know, you read a book or a magazine that's in the back of the plane, you know?
Right.
So we touch down, or we're getting close to touching down. Voicemail pops up, and it's a lot of them actually. So I'm like, this is either really good or really bad.
Yeah.
And I go right to Jeff Maxey's voicemail, and all it said is he effing won. And so I got the phone to my ear, and you got to picture this, you know, I'm sitting on the airplane and I probably could not be still on the whole flight. I got this little lady that looks like everyone's picture perfect grandmother sitting beside me.
Okay.
So I put the phone to my ear and all I get is we effing won. And I literally like, yes, put my hands up, and, you know, the whole airplane is like staring at me, and this little grandmother, you know, puts her hand on my leg or my shoulder or whatever. And she's like, son, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. My kid just won Loretta Lynn's, you know,
wow.
That's a pretty dang good memory. And I wasn't even there.
Right.
You know, but that was so freaking cool.
But you can picture exactly where you were and exactly that emotion. And as you were telling the story, I was able to verify your date. That was correct. I wanted to see like who he was racing at the time. So Stefan Schenk got second to him that day. Yep. And James Murrah, I remember that name. Tim Detling was in there, Cody Kopp. So definitely some names, but he went 1-1 on the weekend there, got the overall at Loretta's. And that has to, in my mind, the first thing I thought of when I saw that win, when I was looking up some of my stuff earlier, some of my info here for this was it's got to be cool to win at Loretta's. Obviously winning at Loretta's is cool, but to win close to home, I mean, that's a race close to home for you guys. That's got to be extra cool too.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you know, he also, like I say, got to ride at Joe's quite a bit after the school. You know, we were able for him to go up there and ride. And, you know, Joe was obviously known for doing very well at Loretta's. You know, he had a 10-pack at his house, kind of the, you know, the 10 Commandments and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the Tennessee Heat, you know, Dalton was raised in that, born in that. And so,
yeah, we're not cut out for that up here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, those Joe Bird push-ups in the attic, you know, paid off, you know, that's,
oh my gosh,
that's for sure. But I don't know what it was, you know, he did really well at Loretta's, and also had, I'm going to say, more emergency room visits from Loretta's than any other racetrack. And we had a lot of them.
I've heard that from so many people that it's like Loretta's, I just can't catch a break there. Always get hurt there. So many people, even on the show here, have told me that, which is so funny because you look at the track and it's not like the track. Yeah, it's nothing like what any of the other tracks are like even.
Yep.
Yeah, it's mellow.
You know, which we had a lot of our emergency room visits. Dalton was wide open. Like that's, he had zero fear. He wanted to be the first kid to go out and hit the jumps and what have you. You know, that was just the way he was. But again, that kind of goes back to what I told you, that he was around these kids that like the freestyle stuff. So he had a lot of jumping experience, you know, and I got to tell a story that has nothing to do with ATV motocross.
Please. I told you, you got to jump in there and let it out when it's on your mind.
Yeah, so we're at Sugar Creek, and they've got this little narrow, rickety freestyle ramp to a big pile of sand, dirt, whatever, and Dalton can barely kickstart his 450, and these kids, a couple of them were hitting this freestyle ramp, and Dalton kind of, like did the Evel Knievel thing, rode up the ramp and pulled the clutch in, rolled back down. He did that a couple times, and I'm sitting over off to the side with some older guys. They might have had a beer or 10 in them, and they don't know that's my kid. He's out there with a helmet on, all that sort of stuff. And this guy says, and we've talked since then. I know this guy. He says, if that little butthead hits this ramp, I'll kiss his rear. And I knew Dalton was fixing to do it. He had never done it before, but he had been wanting to. Sure enough, he hits it. Sure enough, he crashes on the landing.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Broke a tooth. Think he broke his nose, but he was pumped. Like it wasn't crying, bawling, I'm hurt, whatever.
He did it.
He's bleeding, and he rolls over to me, and he's pumped up, and I'm like, you got to hit it again before we leave, because I knew we had to go to the emergency room. Sure enough, he goes back, hits it, lands it perfectly, and we left and went and got his nose looked at, and the tooth broke, all that sort of stuff.
That's what you got to do, though, right? I remember my dad saying the same thing. If you crash on it, you got to get up and do it right away, because otherwise it's going to be in your head. You're not going to want to do it when you come back.
Yep. But we had a lot of emergency room visits at Loretta's. So one in particular, I don't remember what class this was. I feel like it was C class, but he gets knocked out. He crashes in the 10 Commandments, gets knocked out. They're like, he's got to go to the emergency room because he was out for 15, 20, 30 seconds for a little while.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was with him, but if he got knocked out, when he started waking up, he knew nothing but curse words. That's all he knew. Loudly.
It's like those videos you see on the internet of people coming in and out of anesthesia.
Yes. So the family that owned my Top Fuel car that I drove for came to that race to watch him.
Okay.
And this lady is so awesome. Her name's Lauren Pickens. She's so awesome. A very religious, very, very religious church-going lady. And all that was coming out of Dalton's mouth was the F word. That was it. And this, to the point that the ambulance crew was like, you need to calm him down. I'm like, he's out of his head right now. I'm sorry,
Right.
So we get to the little emergency room there at Waverly. I think it's Waverly.
It is Waverly. Yep. It is Waverly. Everybody can picture it, because that's as you go into Waverly to, go to the grocery store, to go to Walmart or whatever, you pass by it up on the hill there, and you think how many great racers were in that little hospital at one time.
Yes. So, he's in the back there, and you can hear him out in the waiting room. And I'm sitting out there, as Donna's in the back with Dalton, and I'm like so embarrassed sitting there with Lauren Pickens. Again, she's literally this awesome church lady, church going lady. Yeah. And finally they actually come out and get me, and they're like, can you come back here? And he just won't stop. So and they got his head taped down because they're x-ray and everything, whatever, because he got knocked out. Yeah. He had a broke collarbone, which was why he was really screaming, because we all know collarbones hurt like a booger.
They do. Yep.
He broke it pretty good. It wasn't like stuck out of the skin, but it was definitely poking out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so I literally get nose to nose with him and tell him if he says one more cuss word, I was going to knock him back out, and in the dad voice. We all know that dad voice. You can remember your dad's voice.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so that kind of brought him back down a little bit. But
did it work?
Yeah, Loretta's is awesome. I love that place. The airplane story was one of my favorites, though. Yeah, and I didn't even see him win.
That's awesome. Actually, not that long ago, I saw on your Instagram you posted a picture of one of the banners outside of Loretta's, on that main stretch there. And I'm assuming, whenever you're in that area, it probably takes you back right to these stories of being on the airplane and picturing what that must have been like to be there.
Yep. I go by that exit driving, when I'm headed places, and that very picture. I pulled in. I didn't need anything. I just pulled in, want to take a picture.
Yeah,
just
that's awesome.
because.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would assume. Go ahead.
Don't let me forget. Once we get a little further into Dalton's riding, I have another Loretta story, but I'll kind of mess up where we're headed if I tell it right.
Okay. Well, and yes, we won't let you forget that. I would assume that win to finish 2010, to end 2010 with a win at Loretta's, and obviously that's the benchmark. That's the best place to win in the sport. To end 2010, I have to believe that was like a catapult or a springboard for 2011 then, because his 2011 year was a storybook year for him, winning that 450A national championship, finishing second to our buddy, Tyler Hamrick in production A. I have to believe that was a special year, a special season for that whole family, for your whole family. I mean, winning 450A back then, because the classes are structured differently now and stuff, but winning 450A meant, you were one of the prominent amateurs in the national series. And that's exactly what Dalton was at that time.
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing we haven't touched on. I mean, I just said something about how good he was, or how much, and he was good at jumping.
Yeah.
But his specialty, without a doubt,
starts.
Yes. Like incredibly good. And I just said something about a 72 horsepower motor. He didn't have that all the time. He didn't have that. That was as we progressed.
Of course. Yeah.
And the truth is
you can't put less experienced rider on that much horsepower and think that they're going to be able to hold on a motocross track.
Yeah. And that's what I was fixing to say. To be honest with you, he sucked with that motor. Wayne Henson beat me to death for doing that. He said Doug Gus, one of the greatest of all time, which Wayne obviously had a big history with, would not ride 72 horsepower. He said it was too much. And I'm like, well, that's what Joe Bird's got. And he's like, Joe Bird is a giant. Your kid weighs, 130 pounds.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. I think that we always heard those stories about Joe having a ton of horsepower because he needed it. He needed it to be a big guy. But I've also heard stories for a decade about them taking power away from Joel Hetrick's bikes because Joel is built like Dalton was. He was a little guy and he wanted to be able to ride his tail off on that machine, not just try to hold on to a bunch of power. And I think that that's important to put out there into the ATV, motocross heads of people out there, because there still are people that think, power, we need more power, when that's not necessarily the case. So I'll let you keep going with your story there, but I think that was something that we needed to touch on.
Yeah. I'm that guy. I mean, again, I'm a drag racer, so that's all I thought about,
Yes.
And
suspension is more important.
Way more important
in our sport. Yeah.
I couldn't help him with none of that. Luckily, we were friends with, Micah McDonough and all the guys at Penske, Custom Axis, we became great friends, obviously, with Walsh, and they kind of took care of that for Dalton. That was, but he was spectacular at starts. I mean, if you had Tyler on here right now, Tyler would tell you I would have won both championships if I could have started with Dalton, Right. And I looked a little bit, but I have somewhere some stats on 2011. I'm going to say Dalton had 75 or 80% of the hole shots of every single moto that year. Like it was just stupid, Mike Walsh, I text him before me and you went on air here. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing this, give me a memory. And can I read it? Can I just read it?
Please do. Hey, he had to be ecstatic that we were getting you on the show.
Oh, for sure. So I just said, hey, I'm doing the show with Cody. Tell me something about Dalton, and this is word for word what he said. My favorite memories of Dalton were honestly every hole shot. He was always a mile out front. Starts you could always count on, was in the same area code as Cody Gibson. You just knew they were going to come out in the front of the pack. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's hard to tell. You could tell he's from a drag racing blood in his family. That's what Mike Walsh said.
Yeah.
So, and that was the only thing that I could help him with. And that was it. That's all,
Yeah.
the rest of it was on him.
Did you guys actually have a way to work on it though, other than just practicing starts? I always wondered that, knowing your background. I wondered if you had some special, training lights or something that you guys worked on. So tell me how.
Well, Dalton, me and him, I don't want everybody to think that me and him he was definitely my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be super honest. We would butt heads like crazy. I think that's a typical father-son when they're in some competitive thing together,
Right. Yes,
we
absolutely.
would butt heads.
Absolutely.
We would butt heads.
I think there are so many people nodding their heads right now listening, because any dad and son go through that, especially at the age he would have been at the time. Right. I mean, we've all been there, and you think best. Right. But, now you get a little older, and he would have realized too, hey, dad's just trying to help me out.
Oh yeah. I mean, we got there,
Exactly.
but probably when it came to starts though, kind of where I was headed, that we would argue over like bike setup or what motor we run, stuff like that.
Okay.
I 100% thought I knew better, and I really didn't. But I also would pick up the phone and call Wayne Henson or Mike Walsh, where Dalton wasn't going to do that. He was like, "Oh, I'm not calling Wayne Henson. That guy's a legend, or whatever." But anyway, when it came to starts, he was all ears all the time. It was, and I talked about the 300s a little bit. I can't tell you how many times we would go to Sugar Creek and literally line up. Like I would race him. Now I can't go around a corner and I can't go jump nothing, but we would just duke it out. I mean, we would just absolutely run after 300-foot run over and over and over and over. And I also, Dalton bought into the mental side of things with a lot of things I do that have helped me through my career. There's, a lot of stuff that I'm not going to put out to the world that I have studied and I was shared with him, and Dalton maintained that stuff, these things. There's books out there. There's things out there that you can read and study that help you mentally that have zero to do with racing necessarily, but
have to do with focus. I'm assuming
have to do with focus
and getting centered
Yep. And man, I listen. And please help me. It's is it Nick Janusa that struggles a little bit with starts, but is super fast?
That's exactly who it is. Yep.
There are times when I've listened to him on the show and it's like, oh, I would love to talk to that kid, because we all know he's super fast. And he
podiumed. I mean, we're Daytona's just about to happen. He podiumed last year at Daytona because he got a good start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was the only thing I could help Dalton with. And and this is not a dad bragging. There are facts to back it up. Mike Walsh just told you he started like Cody Gibson.
Yes.
He had that ability, and that some of it, people will say, well, it was natural. Well, some of it is natural, but some of it is just all between your ears.
Yes.
It's just one of those things. And that was something I was super proud of how good he could start.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about it being between your ears there. We talk about it, or you even hear it in, two-wheeled motorsports or whatever, when a rider, expects to win, they get better starts because they expect to be up front. And so they're out of their head. A rider that, isn't fit or is struggling with something or is worried about the length of the moto or whatever, struggles with starts because they're not thinking they need to be at the front. They're worried, hey, if I get a good start, I'm going to get shuffled back or whatever. So when you have I'm assuming this is kind of what you're getting at. I'm not going to, we're not going to air any of your secrets here, but when you have all this mental clutter and you're balancing all these other things, that's just going to weigh you down on a hole shot, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to be just mentally clear when you roll up there,
Yeah. Yep.
It's just one of those things. And I honestly kind of forgot what we were even, the 2011 year.
Yep, we're talking about the 2011 year. Yep.
Him and Tyler, absolutely, it was a slugfest. If you go and look at the stats between those two, it was a slugfest. Dalton would crush him on the start, And Tyler is fast. Tyler is fast.
Yeah.
He, if Dalton got a big enough start, I'm like, it's over with. But if Tyler was close, I'm like, we got a battle on our hands. And, at the end of the day, the end of that year, Tyler won production and Dalton won A. I mean, they literally slugged it out. It was so fun. And, a lot of times what will happen when you have those kind of battles like that, the two families end up not liking each other.
That's
and
exactly what happens.
And in this case, we turned it into fun. I mean, Big Hambrick, me and him were like, we'd talk trash. It was fun,
Yeah, Big
Tyler
Big Eddie's a great guy.
Oh, I love him. We had fun with it. I mean, we'd throw dirt clods at each other to mechanics area, and
Yeah.
it was there were a lot of good races, between those two guys, and
Yep.
they kind of distanced themselves. They were the two, in the A classes that year.
Yep.
So many good races, and they both won a lot, and
They did. Yep.
And as the year progressed, that it was kind of clear, and Tyler probably will kill me for this, but this was where two dads stepped in and interfered. As we got towards the end of the year, and Harv and everybody's probably going to hate to hear me tell this story. But again, the statute of limitations is over with. We're talking about 2011.
Yeah, exactly.
Over 10 years ago.
Yes.
Me and Big Eddie got together. It's like, okay, both of these kids, have had a heck of a year. I don't know how many races were left, and I know you'll have this information, but me and Big Eddie got on the phone together, and we decided, Tyler and Dalton didn't have nothing to do with this. We decided that Dalton is not going to run production anymore, and Tyler's not going to run A class. It's like, let's just stop right here, right now. They're both going to win a championship.
So you're basically guaranteeing your guy one of them instead of beating each other into the ground and not knowing what's going to happen.
Well, and it wasn't, we didn't do it to guarantee them a championship. We knew they were going, Dalton had a bigger lead in A, whatever.
Okay.
But both of them were so wound up to run Pro-Am. So we're like, let's stop right now.
Gotcha.
And
they wrap it up early.
Let's wrap it up early because they both were wearing us out to go ahead and do that. They wanted to keep racing each other in both A classes and do Pro-Am. Well, me and Big Eddie are the ones fixing these freaking bikes.
Right. Yeah.
We're changing them clutches between motos. We're doing all that stuff. And we're like, okay, we'll continue to run two classes, but let's just quit running one A class and do Pro-Am.
Yeah.
And again,
makes total sense.
Tyler's going to be like, I can't believe you told that story, but that's the truth. Me and his dad figured this out, that it was easier for me and him to do that, And again, I didn't get to go to all the races, I didn't. So, we had Bill Mickey helping or whoever, would come and help, and Donna. And that's one thing that we have completely skipped over, that Dalton's racing would be zero if it was not for Donna. I mean, like, she literally, hook up to the gooseneck and freaking off and running. And there was always a sidekick in there with them, with Adrian Cooper. We drove that girl all over the country.
Okay.
That's crazy, just.
And she was a hell of a racer in her own right.
100%. I just mentioned about, runner-up finish at Phoenix. Don and I went and saw her while we were out.
Did you really? Oh, wow.
Okay. She's a mom now. She's got two beautiful kids.
I was gonna say she's a mom now. She's got a family and doing all that stuff. That's awesome. And again, to think connected to ATV racing or from ATV racing all those years ago, that's so cool.
Yep. But they rode and rode and rode. I mean, Unadilla, coming home from Unadilla, they had a minimum of 3 blowouts on the trailer. So you got 2 women and a kid that don't even have a driver's license, and they're freaking changing tires. And I mean,
oh my gosh, they were hitting their time limit all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. truth is Donna has way more, of the ATVs in this time frame than I do, because
Sure. Yeah,
I'm racing, but I'm paying the bills, so I'm missing a lot of this stuff. But
of course.
it's a huge part of our life. We 100% loved our time there. In 2011 was the top of the charts.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that so many of us, like, I feel the same way. I mean, obviously you weren't able to be at all of the races, but the way that we were able to do it as a family, the way that, my parents too were all in, and I hate to talk about my racing here, but it's very similar in the fact that my parents went all in on my racing as well.
Yep.
And I am so grateful for that. Not only did I get to do it for a long, long time, but to be able to share those memories with my parents and my family, my little brother being with us. Like,
Yep.
That's what matters to me. The very, very most of it all is sharing those memories with my family, traveling the country, all that stuff. Because how many kids get to 18 years old or whatever, and they move out or do whatever they want to do, and they spend all their time with their friends and their buddies and whatever. And yeah, like, we all had a bunch of that too, but to be able to be with your family doing that, I just think that's so invaluable about our sport and racing in general.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Donna and Adrian, they were like mom and daughter essentially, and it was pretty cool. I mean, yes, I was part of the conversation when we went and saw her, at her house here a couple weeks ago, but there's a connection between them two that is irreplaceable.
Sure.
I mean, Adrian's this teenage girl at the time, and so Donna was like an extra mom for her. And they literally, they went all over, the eastern side of the United States together. Right. We hauled her bike for her, and I know her parents, and it's an amazing family. The ATV racing world is an amazing family.
It is. And the one other thing I want to at least comment on before we pass it by. So I know if Tyler was sitting here with us, Tyler Hamrick, if he was sitting here with us, he would also call that year of racing his favorite year, because he said it to me a number of times. He stayed with me down in Florida, just shortly after that, a couple of years after you guys were battling for that title. And I think he so often talked fondly about that year. I mean, that it's just it's one of those things. And I was there. I was at those races. I remember, or at some of them, I remember I tore my shoulder that year. So I would have been in those A-class races with those guys. And I think I was maybe at like some of the races earlier in the year. And then later in the year, I got to sit and watch them, and they were Velcroed together. Wherever one was, the other one was. And it's just that's exactly how it's burned into my memories. Those guys just being, bumper to bumper right together from start to end of these races. And I think that that's so cool. I think that those two, Dalton and Tyler, were just so connected. Like, it's a special connection because they were able to have so much fun. You guys created just a great environment to be able to enjoy the racing, even though we have the same goal. We're trying to win these races. Yep. We're trying to beat the other person. And I think that, like, when you have a good relationship with that, like that, I feel like it makes it that much more enjoyable. It makes the racing that much more enjoyable because it's not cutthroat. Like, yes, like, we want to win, but at the same time, it's, hey, we're creating a fun environment at the same time. I think that that's like something that maybe should be taken note of, because the reason why it's such a great memory is because throughout the whole time you were having fun with your competitor. Like, that's a cool thing, because it's a rare thing.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, normally it turns into the two families having trouble, and because they were like fly paper. You couldn't get them away from each other. Right. And it was just, some of the races were so incredible. One comes to mind at the moment, Budds Creek. Can't think of, mud race. For whatever reason, Dalton was good in the mud. And I just had this memory. Dalton, we had big tires on, and him and Tyler, typical deal. Dalton got the start. Tyler caught up with him in some of the corners. Dalton was getting away in some of the other spots, but they just mirrored each other, and just so fun, it just unbelievable how hard they beat and banged and wouldn't be mad about it, and right. But now there was other people that, both of them, him and Tyler both, if somebody, clipped them, they'd be like, oh, that, whatever,
right,
whatever the words they may use, but for whatever reason, they didn't do it to each other. But I think it's because they were just so close in talent. But I mean, it literally like started at the first race of the year, Antonia Pass, like it just started right there. I have this vision of, we didn't even have the bike finished. I had SSI graphics and I have this vision of Dalton pulling the whole shot with a red Honda, like it just factory Honda decals on it. And it started from race one. I mean, I think there, Dalton won production and Dalton won A and Tyler won production. And it just like, I don't know what happened to both of them in the off season, but they both elevated. And we see that with the kids now. And I do keep up enough, that something happens to these kids at some point. It happened to you, you weren't necessarily blistering everything you went to, but something like, I don't know.
It just happens. Yeah. It just happens. Yeah. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's a mental thing where you just say, okay, like next year, this is my goal. And mentally you're already taking that step. And you just got to find a way to, to physically and, whatever, be able to actually go faster, but mentally it changes. It's like, okay, like now I expect to win said class next year. Right. And I think that's what you saw, Dalton do too. He went from being a top 3, guy to, hey, like now this is my championship to win.
Yeah.
As the #1 podcast in ATV racing, it's only right that we partner with the industry leaders in suspension tuning. Insert Impact Solutions. Impact Solutions is a full-service ATV and side-by-side suspension center specializing in the revalving and service of your motocross and off-road suspension. With over 25 years of elite-level knowledge, experience, and testing with riders of all ages and ability levels, Casey Greek, Jay Goebel, and the Impact crew strive to exceed clients' expectations for service and setup. Impact Solutions is the official Elka Suspension Service Center of the United States, offering unmatched product knowledge and experience. Whether you're in need of service, parts, warranty, sales, or technical support, Impact Solutions has you covered. Head over to impactsolutionsatv.com or give them a call today.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0 and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20.
Hey everyone, this is Larry Mills, president of DP Brakes North America and proud partner of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. We at DP Brakes are a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology, dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. This year's lineup includes Jeff Rastrelli, Mark Baldwin and Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, and many more, including Mr. Digging Deep himself, Cody Jansen. Plus all the top 17 GNCC pros such as 7-time champion Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Hunter Hart, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and previous champion Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer. Products that ultimately help place them on top of the podium week after week. DP brakes are available through www.dp-brakes.com, or you can purchase them through your local Parts Unlimited stocking dealer, or you can even message us, myself, Larry Mills, or DP Brakes on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions about product or sponsorship support, please ask us. We are waiting for you. Join the best ATV riders in the world equipped with DP Brakes, and have a great year, everyone.
Nearing 2 decades into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back and better than ever, continuing to make major waves in the ATV world. For the 3rd consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for 2-time champ Joel Hetrick. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of industry-leading products available for all makes and models. Head over to factory43atv.com today.
Success in the ATV MX world is similar to what creates financial success as well. The right people, the right advice, and more importantly, hard work and the benefit of an ongoing relationship as situations change and adversity is experienced. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you reach your goals? Haymauer Financial Group can create a personalized, goal-based plan to help your family prepare for whatever life brings. Call me, Scott Haymauer, at Haymauer Financial Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, at 920-338-8150. That's 920-338-8150. Offices located in beautiful De Pere, Wisconsin, with registrations and clients nationwide.
Since we're kind of in 2011, and like I said, there's so many stories with him and Tyler, that whole season and the whole Hamrick family and all that. But so they both dived off into the Pro-Am thing, and Tyler did better at that initially. And it was kind of funny. We were kind of having, and this is the mechanic side of me.
Okay.
I probably needed to have stepped up my game a little bit on some of Dalton's stuff. We were breaking stuff, and I'm not going to forget that Loretta story that I told you I had to tell, and this is it. I had to tell it.
Okay.
So we broke a motor, and Dalton had to start, and we all can picture Loretta's. He barely got in. We broke a motor, and so he had to start Pro-Am at the extreme far left side.
Okay.
You know how the gate is at Loretta. That is not the place you want to be at Loretta's.
No, you're a mile away.
You are a mile away. So we broke a motor, and that's why he was dead last, as far away as you could get. So gate drops. He is rolling from the outside. And I just put my fist up, yep. It's over with. He goes in from where I'm at the gate there. He goes into that first turn. He's out front.
Okay.
So I grab my little backpack. I grab my little pit board, and I'm kind of strutting a little bit of dad strut headed over to the mechanics area,
Yeah, of course.
People are patting me on the back and pointing, and I'm like, oh yeah, from the outside, that's what my boy just did,
Oh yeah.
And a couple more people grabbed me and pointing. Dalton's on the ground over there. So yes, he got to the first corner first, but the entire pack come sliding out.
Oh boy, that's what happens there. That's the scary part of Loretta itself, is that outside is so far outside that that inside doesn't stay to the inside. They come slamming into the outside.
Yeah, so he got there, he did get there, and I didn't see this because, you go around that hard turn there.
Yeah.
So we were off and running on our way back to the emergency room in Waverly.
I was literally just going to say that was going to be my response is Waverly, here we come again.
Yep. So apparently somehow it pitched the bike in such a way that it flipped it, and the Nerf bar karate chopped his leg and broke his leg pretty good. Pretty dang good. So, but it was, last race of the year or whatever, but,
so was that 2000, was that the Pro-Am year? Was that 2012?
That was Pro-Am last race of the year in 2011.
Oh, when he bumped up.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So him and Tyler, I can't remember for sure, but him and Tyler, they ran Pro-Am at Redbud, a couple of the last few races. They because of me and Big Eddie making that deal.
Of course, yeah.
They both got to go ahead and kind of try it out. And, and they knew, and both of them knew, whoo, this Pro-Am's not A class, you know what I mean? Man,
it changes. That Pro-Am period was so stacked. Those races were so stacked. 20, 10, all those years, there was 4 qualifiers in 2008, but 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that was just such a stacked era. It was incredible.
Yeah. I do have a list of that because I didn't want to forget some of the names. I got to put my cheaters on here. But,
okay.
And one name that I did not bring up was a kid that Dalton spent tons of time. The kid lived here, and him and Dalton were super, super tight, and he was a big part of it.
Okay.
But with Casey Martin. So
Oh,
Casey Martin and Dalton were like two peas in a pod.
I was just going to say they were two peas in a pod forever.
Oh, yeah.
I always remember them being connected at the hip.
But I'm looking at Redbud. This is the one sheet I printed out because I knew we were going to talk about, this. But I mean, you got Casey Martin, you got Mark Mattel. Mark Mattel was fast.
Heck yeah, he was.
Kyle Fix, Nick Moser. I mean, Aaron Meyer. Aaron Meyer was kind of part of that whole Casey and Dalton clan,
Mm-hmm.
Cody Suggs, Ronnie Higgerson. I mean, Sean Taylor. It's just, the list
just keeps going.
Cody Gibson. I mean, it's just like, my God, the class was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, we were kind of starting to wind down from the ATV thing because there was no golden light at the end of the tunnel no more.
Right. The same story we've said so many times is you eventually get to a point where it's like, okay, how far are we going to take this?
Yep.
Because there's nothing waiting for us. This is a hobby. It's a hobby.
Yep. And I mean, at that level, you can't really do it at a hobby and not be successful.
Exactly. It's very tough. I mean, it's very tough because the guys that you're competing against, and we as in Dalton, Tyler Hamrick, other names,
Martin, Aaron Myers, I mean,
Sean Taylor, all those names that you just said, we all ran into that because you can't justify doing it full time, but the guys at the front are doing it full time because it's their job. And that's and nobody, I mean, this is no sob story, but that's what you run into is there's this division in the pro class where there's guys that are able to do it full time and there's guys that obviously can't. And, that's where that division comes. And I guess it also changes what you're shooting for. I tell people all the time, like for us, if you finish sixth, like I remember Hammy getting a top 5 in a moto at Millville, and we celebrated like he won. This is jumping to when he was in the pro class, but because the expectations were so much different,
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, and Dalton 100% loved it with all of his being. I mean, he loved it, but he was also getting to the age to where, he's like, I don't know what we're going to do, and I was in his ear about that too. It's like, there is no factory, nothing, there is no whatever, and I don't want anybody on here to think I'm saying, that he was Joel Hetrick because there's only one Joel Hetrick. There's only one Chad Weenie. But like you said earlier, when we started this in the 07, 08 timeframe, there was a lot of people that were getting support, getting help and making a living, and in our case, I was able to bleed over a lot of the sponsors that I had, which allowed us to keep doing it. We had companies that helped us and I was trading some of that stuff out initially, the Walsh thing, Walsh gave us a break on parts because I put the decal up.
Of course.
And he would help at the racetrack with setups and, Wayne Henson, and I, a lot of people ask, and I know that was one of your questions, you still do it. I do it because I love those people and they help my kid and those decals will ride on my helmet for now on. They're family to me. And there's so many others, it just that when those decals got put on my helmet, it was a business deal, business to business deal. I was doing, kind of a trade-off thing. And
of course. Yep.
But they become more than that. They become, friends and essentially family, and so those decals will ride on my helmet until I'm no longer wearing a helmet.
Right. Well, I think that's why so many people like you, right? Like that's why so many people cheer for you is because you're just one of us. You're one of everybody else. Like that does deals that way. Not everybody does things that way, gets a little more cutthroat. So we've told all of these stories. We're touching on, the glory years, the best years of racing for Dalton, talking about, about, Tyler Hamrick in 2011. Those are such great times. If I was to ask you your favorite ATV racing memory with Dalton, have we told it already, or is it still in your back pocket?
I've got one that is not at a national, actually, which probably is a little weird.
No.
But I've got, like I say, the airplane story is pretty cool. Like that sticks out. That
of course.
sticks,
Of course, yes.
But one of my favorite where I was there is an arena cross race, and we were in Tunica, Mississippi, which is the casinos down there, and we were at the arena cross race. And I mentioned earlier that I hate Travis because he made Dalton learn how to burn up clutches nonstop. And we all know Travis Moore was fast,
Yes, he was.
super fast.
Yes.
Travis is a bad dude on an ATV.
Yes, he is.
So he had, he was a teacher. He was Dalton's teacher for, a lot of time, along with Casey Martin and all these. There's so many people that I'm going to be mad at myself I didn't mention that were a part of Dalton's ATV racing. But anyway, we're at this arena cross race, and Dalton had gotten fast. I mean, he had, I don't remember what year this was. It could have been this 2011 year where the light switch had went on, and
Sure.
like he's pretty fast now. So
Yeah. Yep.
we the arena cross place is packed, and Casey Martin's there. Aaron Myers has actually came down. They weren't riding, but they were here.
Okay.
And Dalton pulls the whole shot. Surprise, surprise. And Travis cleans him out. First lap. First corner.
Teacher on the student.
Yes.
Student drama there.
Yep. He didn't come off the bike, but he pissed Dalton off. I'll just go on and just say it.
Okay.
He pissed Dalton off, and you could see it. And it's funny how especially when it's your kid or somebody that you're very familiar with.
Yep.
The riding style changed immediately to I'm on kill.
Mm-hmm.
And so Travis has got a pretty big lead, and there is this. Really, it's a double single into a turn. That's really what it is.
Okay.
Dalton comes around, and he does not let up. And I'm like, holy smokes. He triples this thing.
Okay.
Lands 100% in the turn and makes it. I'm like, oh my God. Well, the next thing you know, he's gathered Travis back up. Travis double singles. No checking up. Now, Dalton, long story short, that was one of the coolest things because he elevated what he could do because he had
to. Because he had to. Yeah.
And it was like, Travis, you tick me off. And they love each other. Him and Travis love each other. But the teacher pissed off the student to the point that the student beat him that night.
Yeah. Got the best out of him. So he ended up getting by Travis.
He got by Travis and won that moto, the second moto. He now knows he can do that nobody was doing this jump. It really wasn't set up to be done that way.
Sure. Yeah. It was like a double and a roller, I'm assuming is how I'm picturing it. And he's able to clear the whole thing.
But you had to land it perfectly because you're into a 90-degree turn.
Sure.
As soon as you land it.
Sure.
He almost was landing sideways.
Yeah, he had to pitch the bike. Yep.
He had to pitch the bike, and I had never seen him do anything like that. And Travis may remember this differently, but Keith Parker was there. I mentioned he was a big part of Dalton's early riding.
Yes.
Travis crashed in the second moto trying to keep up with Dalton.
Okay.
And so that's a huge memory for me. And it's because I love Travis Moore.
And he was a great rider. That's why it stands out as he was a great rider. Yeah.
Yes. And that was a big moment for Dalton as well,
Mm-hmm.
to actually beat Travis heads up. Now, granted, it was not a national. That was an arena cross situation, but that was huge for me, and it was huge for Dalton. And Dalton might have rubbed it in a little bit that he beat him that night. Now he didn't beat him anywhere else. I'm just say that, but that was a big memory, for him to hit that switch that all people have, like, not tonight.
Mm-hmm.
This is not happening. And I know you've had it. You've told some stories of where you had to win and you were going to, no matter what, the I don't care button is turned on.
Well, how many times have we talked about how, that's like when you have to do it, that's the most rewarding. But you also, how many times have we talked about, like, if you could just bottle up that feeling of when something happens and, now I'm, playing catch up, or, now I'm a little, somebody's rattled my cage a little bit. If you could just find a way to take yourself to that mental space every time, maybe that's what makes the greats the greats. I don't know, but
that's what makes Chad Weenan and Joel. They've elevated themselves to that so many times.
Yeah.
And it's the same headspace that I was talking about that made Dalton so good on the starting line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, there's my drag racer coming out at me on the gate.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
The gate,
Yeah. I think that you're exactly right. You're hitting the nail on the head. You got to take yourself to a different place. But I also think that, the finish line for those guys is just different. Like their target they're shooting for is so high that it just elevates them above everybody else, because I mean, they're not even looking, if they're battling in fourth, they're not looking to just get to third. Their target is just so high. I don't know how else to explain it, but okay. So I want to finish out the career then that we're talking about. We touched on Pro-Am a little bit because that wasn't the end of his progression, Dalton's progression, as he graduated to Pro-Am in 2012. I was in the class with those guys at the time. That's where I had to run 25/ all season long because Dalton had 25. Damn it.
We got to cover that too, by the way.
Oh, what do we got to cover?
We've got to cover that. So I got to tell the reason that Dalton was 25.
Oh, please do. Yeah, please.
So I know that people can't see this if they're listening. So there is 25s everywhere behind you back there.
Mm-hmm.
And the 25 is a super special number to me, obviously, because of Dalton. But
yes,
the reason Dalton was 25 was so when I started drag racing and I got my first ever NHRA license.
Okay.
My number was 2556, 4-digit number 2556.
Okay.
So when I became a pro, I was able to remove one number. So I became 255. That was my top fuel number.
Okay.
So I became 255. When Dalton started motocross racing, he did that because of me. He removed one more number.
Okay.
And became 25.
Sure. Yeah.
And
how cool is that to be, just to go back to and that's kind of the story we've been trying to tell, is that, your racing and his racing, your racing today, even still connected to ATV motocross. I mean, that's the story we've been trying to tell, is it's all integrated together, and it's cool. I mean, everybody's got a number behind, a reason behind the number, right? There's always a story behind the number. I remember when we started the podcast, I was in the rhythm more of asking people why, why number 44, why number 88, why, about the number. So it's cool to hear that story behind it, that it wasn't just a number.
Yep. So to finish that story, and I've got a couple other things.
Yeah.
But finish the me and Dalton 25 story. So after we lost Dalton in 2015, the NHRA gave me a permanent number, which is now 25. So
really? Oh my gosh.
It went from him honoring me to me honoring him.
Yeah. How amazing is that?
Sorry about that. I was going to try to get through all this without that, but
no, that's incredible. I mean, it sure seemed like, I don't know how much, I want to finish the career, and I don't know how deep we want to get into that. I don't even have
that just hit me. Stuff like that's just part of it.
Of course. But
I want to keep on the number thing, because
please do. Yeah.
You're involved in this and you don't even know it.
Okay.
So I listened to episode number 40 where you were with your dad, which was an amazing episode.
Yeah.
And you told the story, you're like something about the 25/ and, and I always assumed that you wanted to be 25 because that was your dad's number. I knew your dad raced,
Yeah.
And I didn't, again, I'm not an AMA ATV Motocross
right
student like you are. So
Yes.
I thought that your dad's number was 25, and I didn't realize it was 40 until I listened to that episode.
Yep.
And your AMA number, I guess, was 25 when you got.
It's 25 to this day. When I got my AMA card when I was, 8 years old or whatever, my number was 25. And I'll let you finish the story, but I'll touch on this tangent to tell you that, so when I was a kid, I raced as number 40 because that was my dad's number, and everybody wants to be like their dad, and your dad's always your first hero. And it got to the point where we went to a couple races and there was another number 40 and I had to run 40/.
Yep.
And so the way it was back in the day, and I don't think that they honor it the same way anymore, but your AMA number gave you precedence that what you would never have to run a slash.
I'll be dang.
I said, hey, I don't want to run a slash. I don't want to have to run a slash. I'm going to run my number 25. You love 25 like I do. So it's the clean, symmetrical look. It's perfectly balanced on the number plate or on the car or however you want to see it. And so that's why I did it. And then, you and I and Dalton and I are connected in that way because, we were obviously 25 at the same time, but then he went pro sooner than I did. So he got the number 25, and I'll let you finish. And then,
so I've got a story that directly involves you and you have no clue. This is, I don't know if we had applied. I don't know. I can't remember the details, but what I do remember is, so I don't know about you. Do you have any tattoos?
I do. Yeah. A lot of them.
Oh, yep. A lot of them. So it's a motocross thing. Like I have 0 tattoos, and Dalton, it's the motocross thing. And he's like, I want tattoos. I'm like, no tattoos in my house. It's not happening.
Okay.
And that was just me, and Donald's like, oh, he can get a tattoo. And I'm like, nope, not happening. Not in my house. So when Dalton turned 18, he went to Vegas, to the Vegas race with us. He's 18.
Okay.
And we're out at dinner and he's like, I want to get a tattoo. And I'm like, the rule, no tattoos in my house. I'm 18 years old. I can do whatever I want to do. And I'm like, that's right. But you still live in my house.
Okay.
And so Donna is 100% on his side. She's like, he's 18 years old. If he wants a tattoo, he can get a tattoo. And I said, okay, y'all are overruling me. I get it. I said, but here's the deal. All the tattoos you want, as long as when you have a t-shirt on, they can't be seen.
Covered. Yep.
They're covered. And he's like, well, that's BS. Why is that? I said, well, you're planning on somehow, some way making a living in the racing world. And if you show up in a boardroom wearing a nice golf shirt, I don't think they should be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now that's out the window in this day and time. We're talking, this is, many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm. But still to this day, I think about the same thing. Even so, I only have tattoos on my arms so that I can wear a long sleeve shirt and look, and nobody knows.
Yep.
You didn't know,
You didn't know. So fast forward to that same weekend, him and Donna are like, we're here. We're going to Hart and Huntington and he's getting a tattoo.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. All right. Just you follow my rule though. That's my rule. Until you move out, that's my rule.
Okay. So it had to be covered. The rule had changed now. As long as it could be covered, we were good.
Yeah. Because technically he's 18. He can do whatever he wants. And he knows I'm not going to kick him out of the house. He knows
of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we go to Hart and Huntington, and as we're, on the way there, I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm getting the number 25. Okay. So we get there and it's like, all right, where are you getting the number 25? I'm getting it on my side, right on my side.
Okay.
Okay. So, we're at this fancy tattoo place and they're, figuring out the font, and he wants the font like Ian had picked out for number plates, forever and ever. And
of course.
And the guy at Hart and Huntington is like, first tattoo? And he's like, yes, sir. Where you want it? I want it on my side. He's like, bad idea. That is not the first place you want to get your first ever tattoo.
It hurts down there.
So I get a text message, and I'm pretty sure It's Harv Whipple.
Okay.
Asking what number Dalton is going to run because you are trying to not run the slash on your number.
Okay.
And again, I know you have no idea this is going on.
No, I have no clue.
So Dalton is laying on his side. I feel like at this point they had like the outline done, maybe like the paper, you know how they put the paper on and they kind of, the ink was there, but it wasn't a tattoo.
Okay.
I take a picture and send that to Harv. And he answers back, okay, I got my answer. He knew I wasn't going to give up the 25.
Right. Yes.
So
wow.
I know you have no idea about that. And
so I have no idea. And honestly, it was such a weird time period then because if you remember, they took away after 2012, everything changed because they took away one of the pro-ams because there was 2 pro-ams for forever. They were trying to force, I mean, pro-am had become a very headline class.
Yep.
And what they were trying to do is make a bunch of us go pro. And I didn't feel like I was ready to go pro yet. I'd only raced the nationals full time on a 450 for 1 year.
Yep.
So I don't even remember, to be honest with you, I don't even remember when I applied for my pro license. We know I went pro at the end of 2013, but I have no idea when I tried to get my number. No clue. I just remember I couldn't be number 25.
Yep. I don't know. I don't remember the details. I don't remember all that stuff, but
yeah,
that is a connection that you don't even know about. But
sure.
I wish I still had the picture. I don't.
Of course. So then we are further connected though, because so then it all went, it all kind of reverted backwards for me. I couldn't be number 25. So instead of being 251 or some variation of 25, I went back to riding as number 40. And that was the coolest thing. On the side of my gas tank, Ian did up like father, like son with the number 40 on it. And I ran that and it was really cool for dad. And then it was a couple years later, then I was able to run number 25 again. And I felt, 25 was my number. I mean, I had 25 tattooed on me and I was running 40 on my quad, I had necklace, I had a gold necklace I shouldn't have even said gold. I mean, it is gold, but it's small, but I had a pennant, a little number 40 that I had worn, or I'm sorry, a little number 25 that I had worn, this necklace throughout that whole time, but I had worn it for 10 years, and
that's funny.
I was finally able to get back to the number 25, but I felt, I mean, Dalton and I were never close. You guys were you guys were national riders to me. And I didn't feel like I was a national rider. That's how I looked up to him and Tyler Hamrick. And then, comes full circle that Hammy and I become best friends later on. But I felt like I was doing something special by wearing 25 after that, even though it was my number to bring the 25 back. There was something that I felt special about that.
Yeah. So it's funny, and man, I know we're running so long and Dallas is going to have to edit, but it's funny you mentioned the chain and the number 25. So Dalton had a silver one.
Okay.
That he had on the night he lost his life. He had it on. And I ended up wearing that chain. And it just, like within the last month, it finally wore out to the point that the clasp that held the number to the chain had worn through.
Okay.
And thank the Lord, I felt it fall inside my shirt.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I have it. And if people care to do this, if they go to my first ever NHRA win, which was a huge, massive deal. It's a heck of a story. I won my first NHRA national event on Father's Day. 100% dad come apart on national television. Mm-hmm. And I pulled that chain out from under my Nomex underwear. Okay. And it was number 25, his number chain. 25. It's funny. It's you motocross guys in your numbers and then the chains, wearing the number.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know that this is a thing. It's cool that it's so connected because I got the feeling being around drag racing a little bit that like numbers aren't a thing. Like
they are not.
Right. Yeah. So then to think that, it was enough of a thing for you guys that Dalton got number 25 from you, and then to come full circle and to you to still have this connection to that number is just really, really special.
Yep. And in your text message, you mentioned something about a special car we did. So if you look, I know nobody else can see it, but there's a painting right there of the Top Fuel car with the number 25 on it.
Mm-hmm.
So this past year, my team surprised me. How they did it, I don't know. So we've talked about Ian a whole lot. I'm the decal boy at our race team. I put the decals on. Ian does the wraps, but like if there's, different sponsors, I'm the guy.
Of course.
So I always know everything that's happening with my race team and SSI.
Okay.
They somehow, some way, one of Dalton's friends from the Monster Jam world painted that car years ago, and they ended up wrapping a dragster and surprising me with it. And so for one race, one time, the numbers were a big deal at an NHRA national event.
Yeah. How cool is that? Yeah. And that was one of those things I didn't even know it happened at the time, because it was just last year, right? It was 2021. And I read all about it, how you show up and it's a surprise for you that, we know that Dalton's always riding with you at all these races, but on that special day you show up, it was at Bristol, I believe. And your car is done up in the Blue Thunder livery, like Dalton's monster truck, big number 25s on the side. And what we should do, this conversation has been awesome. We should drop the video version of it too, so that people can see that in the background there. That's incredible. But yeah, we'll share some of these pictures as well of that event. That was so cool, and that had to be so special for you. But yeah, so I do want to touch on just tying up his racing career there, because, he comes in, he's a C rider. He's not even of age. He's, sticks it out for all these years, climbs the ladder all the way to the pro class, makes his pro debut in 2013. And that had to make you pretty proud as a father, I would think.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, again, we kind of knew, and Dalton knew. I mean, it wasn't like it was no secret, but it's like our full-on effort to do this really was kind of wrapping up.
Yes.
And Dalton said, I know I can't, compete with those guys, but I'm going to do it because that way I did it.
I can say I achieved that. Yes.
I achieved that, and so, he did, a few pro races. Was he competitive? No, but he shouldn't have been, that had become not his focus, so to speak.
Right.
We had already headed down the path of, he was now preparing himself to go drag racing, actually.
Okay. I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
A lot of people don't necessarily know this. So we had sponsorship, and it was all over his quad and on our trailer and all this, with the Nitro Fish apparel company.
Yes. I remember. Yep.
So they sponsored me, and they gave Dalton some money so that he could he still had a job. I mean, he was Pro-Am, the Pro-Am year. He worked at a tire store with Logan Tate, who I mentioned, of Sugar Creek and all that. He worked for him essentially.
Okay.
But Nitro Fish gave him some money, to pay entry fees and help pay for gas, which was huge. And he went, and through the Nitro Fish connection, he went and actually got his license riding a pro stock motorcycle.
Okay.
Which was kind of the avenue we thought, well, we're going to head down this path to start drag racing, not at the Top Fuel level, because what I do, you got to find millions of dollars in sponsorship.
Of course.
The pro stock bike deal, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. Still very, very hard. Don't get me wrong, but
right. But more realistic, stepping stone into it.
Yes. And Nitro Fish sponsored a pro stock rider already. So through that connection, we went, and he had never ridden a crotch rocket at all. And what does he do? Gets on it, burp, right down the racetrack,
Okay. Yep.
He just did it. It was like, okay, he can do this, and so that's kind of the path where Dalton was starting to head. And it came up that there's an opportunity maybe to try out to drive a monster truck.
Yes.
And back to me early in this marathon that me and you were doing here, which I'm having a blast at.
It's a blast. Yeah.
I was the 6-time IHRA world champion. Mm-hmm. So IHRA, the series itself, was owned by Clear Channel. Clear Channel owned Supercross.
Yep.
Clear Channel owned Monster Jam.
Yes. Still does.
Yep. It's called Feld Entertainment now.
Yep.
So I know people there. I'm like, Dalton, do you think you really want to do that? And he's like, well, heck yeah. Who wouldn't want to drive a monster truck? And it's on dirt, you know? Right. So
yeah.
So I'm like, this is awesome. I'll just make a phone call and you'll have a job. Wrong. I made a phone call and I was told, we certainly know, we know they knew who I was because I had won 6 world championships, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And they're like, you are kind of lucky in the fact that we're fixing to start something called Monster Jam University.
Okay.
Dalton needs to send us his resume and maybe he'll get a tryout. And so, a resume was easy. Every motocrosser in the world has a resume because they send them to sponsors every year.
Of course, yes.
And so we did that. And so they gave him a tryout and they did call me. I don't want people to think that he didn't get some favoritism because he did. And the only favoritism he got was we're going to give him a tryout and that's it. That's all he's getting. He's got to do it himself.
Okay.
We don't care that you won 6 championships. That has nothing to do with Monster Jam.
Right.
So it really kind of worked out in an amazing way in that they were going to start a new tour called More Monster Jam. And what More Monster Jam was, the drivers of the trucks were going to race ATVs. They were going to race side-by-sides and drive the monster trucks. Well, he did okay. I know Tom Mintz. He's a drag race fan, and that's where Nitro Jam University is actually at his shop in Paxton, Illinois.
Okay.
So that's where he went, and he obviously crushed the 4-wheeler side of things.
Of course he did. Yes.
He crushed that.
Right.
He's fresh off of,
he's a pro. He's a professional ATV racer. Yes.
Yes. So Tom Mintz called me, and he's like, this kid's got no problem starting in the monster truck. We're going to have to work on it a little bit because he just flipped it over. I'm like, okay, that's kind of normal because he didn't let off the throttle when he should have. He looks at the motocross jump,
Of course.
And he's like, but he's teaching everybody here how to ride quads.
Sure.
So he breezed through that. That was, that worked out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up getting that opportunity. He made it on his own. I want people that listen to this, again, back to the daddy thing being on TV,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crack the door open for him, but he's the one that had to do it, and he did.
Insurance. It's not something everyone likes to talk about, but let's face it, if you race motocross, it's something you should have. Integrated Financial Concepts is an independent financial service and insurance firm who offers moto-friendly insurance and helps out riders like Nick Janusa, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Joel Hetrick gain confidence on the track. With their unique Safe to Race and Safe to Ride programs, if you qualify, they have the ability to offer life insurance with living benefits to those who ride. With these living benefits, you may have the ability to access a portion of your life insurance policy while you're still living for things like cancer, heart attack, stroke, or chronic illness. They can also help with many other things, such as home, auto, motorhome, and trailer insurance, as well as college planning, special needs planning, payroll processing, as well as group health benefits for your business. So whether something happens on or off the track, Integrated Financial Concepts has you covered. With their complimentary one-on-one appointments, what are you waiting for? Reach out to Mike Daniele at DANIELE_Michael at nlgroupmail.com today and see how Integrated Financial Concepts can help you. Living benefit riders are supplemental benefits that can be added to a life insurance policy and are not suitable unless you have the need for life insurance. Riders are optional and may require additional premium and may not be available in all states or on all products. This is not a solicitation for any specific insurance policy.
Just like the sport of ATV motocross as a whole, our Digging Deep community is brought together by the love for racing that we all share. Our sport is compiled of many great people, and leading that charge is the Launderville family at Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. This racing-owned family business is a steel and concrete supplier serving the entire United States. Launderville Steel is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products headlined by their 4130 chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for ATVs and UTVs, off-road truck racing, late model dirt and pro tractor pulling series, drag racing, and more. Launderville Steel loves their racing just as much as we do, but don't forget about their concrete division as well. With over 25 years of experience, the concrete division can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. Their central Midwest location enables LSE to easily serve customers across the United States. For a quote, additional info, answers to more of your questions, or to talk a little racing, head over to laundervillesteel.com or give them a call today. We are proud to be partnered with yet another racer-owned company. Thank you, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. Here at Digging Deep, we have an obvious passion for ATVs and pridefully enjoy sharing the sport's history. Since 2019, when the podcast was born, we've been working to partner with individuals who share our passion, but one man and his vision had been missing from our partnership group. Until now. When it comes to the sport's history, the hallowed grounds of Binky's Forever ATC Museum has it all. Binky Tapscott's mind-blowing collection of 3- and 4-wheelers has preserved history by spanning all makes and models from Honda 3-wheelers in chronological order to unique builds that shaped ATV racing as we know it, like Doug Gust's iconic DRZ-powered hybrid thumper and everything in between. There's no denying Binky's passion, a passion that we certainly relate to here at Digging Deep. Binky's goal is to share his amazing collection with fellow enthusiasts by making his prized possessions accessible to the public via scheduled visits. Follow Forever ATC Museum on Facebook and watch foreveratc.com for further updates on possibly getting a chance to see Binky's Forever ATC Museum for yourself. We are proud to welcome Binky's Forever ATC Museum to the Digging Deep family. We recite on every Digging Deep episode that we are all about aligning with others who share our passion and love for ATVs, and that's exactly what Blendzall is. For more than 60 years, Blendzall Racing Oil has been the secret choice of many championship-winning riders and engine builders. From World Championship kart racing in Europe to California Speedway racing or the mud and rocks of East Coast cross-country racing, thousands of hardcore racers know that nothing out-lubricates or outperforms Blendzall. Even with Blendzall's wide reach into all forms of racing, Blendzall's lead man David Schloss admits that ATV riders are his people. In fact, he's been an ATV enthusiast since 1986 when he first threw a leg over a Suzuki Quad Sport 230. Fun fact, his passion for ATV racing even led him to launch a popular ATV racing magazine in the mid-2000s called ATV Insider. So Blendzall is a small family-owned business that blends and bottles all of its products in Ohio and has ATV roots. Sign us up. That's why Blendzall is the oil choice of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. To learn more about Blendzall's rich heritage or to shop Blendzall's full line of 2T and 4T racing lubricants, visit Blendzall.com and follow them at Blendzall on Instagram. Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant. The best power sports coolant on the market, Evans prevents overheating and boilover so you need not worry about harming your engine or suffering a premature end to your ride no matter what the conditions. Designed for use in ATVs, UTVs, motorcycles, and other power sports equipment, when conditions are at their worst, Evans is at its best. Upgrade to Evans now to avoid overheating and boilover next time you hit the track or trail. Use discount code DIGGINGDEEP20 at checkout to save at evanscoolant.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show.
I got to bring up Bill Mickey because I text a lot of his friends leading up to this. And so I asked him favorite thing with Dalton.
Okay.
And him and Dalton did a lot of motocross stuff together. A lot.
Yes.
Was winning the Monster Jam event in Cleveland. That was his first win. And, Bill was his mechanic. And so that was actually, Bill sent that back quickly, was him winning Monster Jam in Cleveland. That was him and Bill did that. So that was pretty cool.
Well, and they were connected from an era earlier,
way back.
Yeah. Doing ATV stuff at the ATV Nationals and connected through, Joe Bird and yeah, exactly. So, and how cool is that? It seemed like Dalton was really finding a home for himself in the monster truck thing. I heard things like, man, he's like really talented at this. Plus he was doing a good job being a showman. That's what you have to do. Right. Well, you have to be in that sport though. Right. I mean, that's how it works.
Yep. Yeah. He was always a show off. That was never a problem. Think about the story I told you about him hitting that freestyle ramp, you know,
Yes.
when the guy talking about the little kid hitting it or whatever. That was, and the jumping thing, that was for him, that was fun. That's showing off, you know?
Right.
And so, but yeah, he was off and running, you know, on the whole Monster Jam thing. I mean, you know, the kid literally did not get to do that basically, but one full year. But I mean, he literally traveled the world. I mean, the world, literally. He went to places that, you know, he went to Iceland. I don't even know where all he went.
Wow.
You know, Brazil, Brussels, and I mean, you name it. I mean, it was pretty amazing deal, you know, and you can really give the credit back to his ATV time, because that was, you know, that kicked the door wide open for him at Monster Jam University.
Right. That's exactly literally the very next thing on my notes was that there's been a number of people, a number of ATV personalities that have made a name for themselves now in the monster truck world, or at least, you know, dabbled in it and did pretty well. And I think that shows, you know, the skill that it takes a top ATV motocross racer or an ATV racer, the skill that it takes to do that. And you're seeing it translate over into stuff like that. And Dalton was a perfect representation of that.
Yep. I mean, I ask a million questions because I'm like, man, that's so cool. Those trucks are huge, you know?
Yeah.
But he said it all tied back to hitting jumps, you know? He's
knowing how that thing was going to work, because he was used to jumping a four-wheeled machine. And that's different for people that come from like the two-wheeled world. Totally different way the machine works.
Yep. You know, he just, you know, he's like, you know, the speed, the attitude of the truck, how they come off, you know, what you do with the throttle or the brake, you know, he's like it. Well, yes, it's a 10,000 pound freaking monster truck. He said it related to him, you know, just looking as you approach the jump, you know, what to do. So
yeah, it makes perfect sense. You know, and you started to touch on it there, but just to think, you know, Dalton spent 22 years on this earth, and, you know, he got a chance to literally like reach for the stars, but like live out his dreams and make a living in motorsports, doing what he loves. He did it himself. Like you said, he earned it. 22 years obviously isn't nearly enough, but he sure made the most of those 22 years, didn't he?
100%. I mean, that's kind of the rabbit hole me and Mike Walsh started down on the text messages. Mike said it made him go and start scrolling back through Dalton's Instagram, and, you know, and people, you know, yes, the majority of the time it don't hit me like it did a while ago. I can talk about him. He lived more of a life than most anybody ever will, you know,
in their entire life.
Yes. In their entire long life, you know. I mean, the kid, you know, did so many things. He traveled the world, not just with, you know, Monster Jam. I mean, with me and Donna and Kale, you know, just from my racing, you know, we lived, and I still do live, a different kind of life, you know. And while 22 years is not enough, you know, I know there is parents that are probably listening that lost a child, you know, and I get asked this quite a bit, you know, how do you keep smiling, those sort of things. And I truly believe that his work here was done and ours is not. That's what I always say.
Yes.
You know, however he did it, somehow, some way, he did everything he was supposed to do on this earth, and we haven't yet. That means we got to keep doing what we got to do to help other people.
Exactly. Yep. There's, like you said, there's no coincidences. Nothing just happens. There's always a reason. There's a higher power. There's a path that's laid for you. And I think that you're exactly right, because that's exactly what I believe.
Yep. I got to tell one more story, and it relates to Bristol, AKA Loretta Lynn's.
Okay.
So I crushed everything in the IHRA. I won more races than anybody. I won 6 straight world championships. I did anything and everything a person could have imagined they would want to do driving a top fuel dragster in their career.
Okay.
And I did it all in a 7-year span with the IHRA series.
Okay.
I couldn't do anything wrong, essentially.
Okay.
And no matter how hard I tried, I could not win an NHRA national event. I was near setting the record for runner-ups.
Okay.
I don't even know what that number is. One of these days I'm going to be an old guy and I'm going to compile all this stuff and I can tell correctly these stories. And I'm going to go through Dalton's career. I'm going to do all those things, but I just don't retain it.
You're going to become a stats guy, but you got so much going on yet.
Exactly. You know, I try to live like right now. Like right now I'm here with you, and that's but we're really reliving some cool things and memories are coming up. But
of course,
this is the biggest, most special win of my career. Again, I was near setting a record for runner-ups. I had raced in the NHRA series, not full-time because I was doing IHRA, but for 19 years, nobody had been to as many races as I had without a win. And on Father's Day, I'm at Bristol and I'm not enjoying Father's Day at all. I still have a little bit of rough time for Father's Day just because.
Of course, yeah.
And Bristol does an amazing job. I've told this story over and over again. Your audience may have heard it, but you're going to hear it again right now. So
nothing wrong with that.
I tried to avoid the phone. You know, I'm getting text messages, Happy Father's Day. And the truth is I didn't want to hear those. I just didn't want to think about it. And Bristol does an amazing job with the fathers in pre-race. They put you in the back of the truck. They parade you down the racetrack. So I ducked out of that. I didn't do it. So I won first round. I win second round. It starts raining. So there's a delay.
Yep.
And when it's finally time to go, there's a crowd of people. We're trying to tow our race car through all these people. And somebody knocks on the window of our tow vehicle. Let the window down, and a little tiny chest protector gets stuck in the window. And I grab my Sharpie. I have a Sharpie in the back of the seat. You know, I'm in my fire suit, so I don't have a Sharpie in my pocket.
Of course, yeah.
I pull the Sharpie out, and the guy's like, no. He's like, your son signed that for my son and said that's the first autograph he's ever given. And so I kind of look more directly at this little motocross chest protector. And sure enough, it's #25 Dalton Millican. So immediate frog in the throat, almost immediate waterworks. And I was frustrated that this guy would do this at that very moment. I'm going up to race Steve Torrance, the guy that's killing everybody and has been for the last few years. And I'm like, well, you know, I look at him and he's like, I want you to have that. So my anger, I didn't really have anger, but I'm like, why right now? You know what I mean? Why right now?
Yeah.
And so he's like, I want you to have that. You know, Dalton said that was his first autograph. So the frog's still in the throat. And I'm like, thank you, you know, and we got to get up there. And by the time we got our car towed up there, something out of this world kind of thing. Like all of a sudden I'm like, man, this is cool. Steve Torrance is already in his car. I'll go over like, see you at the other end, you know, have fun, whatever. I get in the car, boom, our wind light comes on. I'm in the final round. And I have this most just unbelievable calm, no nerves, no nothing. This just total at peace. Stand on the gas in the final. I get killed on the tree. I'm racing Leah Pritchett. She puts a cylinder out. Boom. I get my first ever win on Father's Day. And
perfect day.
That happened for a reason.
Of course it did.
It took me 19 years and 250 some races. It was supposed to take that long. And that's when I showed my little 25. You can go find that and watch it. You know, I certainly teared up and cried like a baby on national TV. But the 25 number pops up constantly. So I'm in the tower doing all this media. And somebody points down at the finish line, and I had run 3.82.25.
Oh, my God.
Unbelievable.
Can't make that up.
No, you can't make that up.
And
there is no such thing as a coincidence.
And that just shows that, you know, that path, I mean, a lot of runner-ups. There's probably a lot of days there that weren't that fun, but that's the way that your story was supposed to go, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly
100%.
the way it was supposed to go.
100%. I mean, that's the way it was supposed to be. It was supposed to take that long.
Mm-hmm.
And dang it, Dalton, none of my other wins will ever be as good as that one, because I have won some since then, and
Mm-hmm.
it's still awesome to win, but nothing will ever match that. Nothing,
feeling.
Yeah.
That
was actually a Father's Day gift from him to me to let me know that it's okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That instantly made the hair on my arm stand up, and had a frog in my throat. That's just, like you said, I mean, that's Hollywood. That's a Hollywood story. That's amazing.
100%.
That's just absolutely unreal.
If you watch that movie, you'd be like, oh, that's a BS ending, but it's
real life. It's real life. And, the one thing I wanted to touch on before, when we were talking about, 22 years, it's not long enough. And, but he, obviously made the most of it. I think that's a credit to you and your wife too. It's a credit to you guys for giving him the opportunity to live out, that awesome life, without parents like you guys. And again, I hate to connect it to my own racing, but it's a gratitude that I often feel for my parents, that they sacrificed so much for me to be able to do it. It would have been a lot easier for you just to focus on your racing. You guys were juggling two completely different kinds of motorsports and racing and schedules and everything else. But what a credit to you and your wife, man. That's absolutely incredible.
Oh, I mean, Donna was an amazing mom. I mean, she had to deal with my racing and his, and literally, like I say, drug his little butt all over the country. And,
that's amazing.
It's crazy. I mean, she really is the backbone, not only to my racing, but she was 100% everything to his racing, because she's the one that put the miles in. And yes, I made a lot of them. I really, really did. But she made them all, every single one, except for the arena cross. She hated arena cross. She went to a few, and she's like, "This is way too dangerous."
Oh, I don't.
Mom in her come out.
Right. No, I get that 100%. So I want to tie this up, talking about earlier, we touched on SSI. We've talked about Walsh throughout this whole thing, but not just that weekend, talking about the Father's Day win or the Blue Thunder, car, but every single weekend, not just those, your own racing has connections to ATV racing with the SSI stuff that we talked about, all the graphics work. We say your name on all the SSI ads, like we touched on already, the Walsh across the helmet, the hints, and all those things. We know Mike Walsh has got mad love for drag racing. He talked about it. But you run that big Walsh decal across the top of your visor. And again, we touched on it, but you've done that for years. You said you're going to do it forever. You said it started as a business deal, and now those relationships are just a forever thing. And I just think that is so darn cool that you keep those connections to our sport, but it's also I don't even want to call it a handshake deal. It's more of a, hey, like you were good to my kid. You were good to me. We're going to keep running your logos. I just think that that's so cool, because for me to show up at some of these drag races, and to see, Walsh, it doesn't really have any connection to what, that whole world, but to me, it has so much connection. I don't know. In my mind, it just instantly takes you to this whole nother level that it's like, that's my kind of guy.
Well, it's funny, the people that know 100% know, because I'll get it. People will come up and they're like, immediately, I'm an ATV guy, man. I got Walsh, and it happens a lot. I run Henson, it happens all the time. It's just really pretty cool. And I immediately love those people,
Of course you do.
They get it, they get it. They may not know the Dalton connection or whatever, but they know that Walsh logo. They know that Henson H, they know those things. And
you kind of got to be a part of this exclusive group to know what they are.
Yeah. And, and then, the people that were around during, our little run through the motocross thing, they 100% know us,
Of course.
Dalton connection there. But I mean, I was running them even after Dalton quit motocross because, those people mean so much to me. And there's so many others. I mean, but there's just a super special connection with, Ian and Mike Walsh and Wayne Henson, the whole Henson family, Nate Walsh. I can't, his dad, I mean, Mr. Walsh was a drag racer. That's what he was, you know?
Yep.
A lot of times, and golly, this is a whole totally different. I don't think the world gives Mike Walsh enough credit for what he has done. He has done so much for so many people. He just don't get the credit he deserves. He's been a part of so many. Jeremy Lawson, his uncle, was a famous drag racer from back in the 60s. So I had a connection to Jeremy Lawson. And of course, Mike Walsh, he is the Kevin Bacon of the ATV world. How about that?
Connected to everybody. I think the same thing. I've thought the same thing for a long time. He doesn't get enough credit. I was happy to be able to get him on the show, and we had to, if there was so much to it, we had to, make it 2 episodes. But
he connected us. He just didn't know it.
Right. Exactly. He connected us, but I was happy to be able to tell his story as a racer too. He was a great racer. And I think that people forget that because they just know Walsh as, Walsh Racecraft and all the people that he's supported, all the greatness he's been a part of, all that stuff. I mean, I was just stoked to kind of bring some of that to light. And I think that, even you could listen to Mike, and I think it rejuvenated him even a little bit,
Yeah. I mean, because of your podcast with him, I went and found the Montreal Supercross. I had never watched it, I mean, Mike was a bad dude,
Yes, he was.
And the connections continue to go on. I mean, I'm good buddies with Corey Ellis, I mean, Corey's a legend, and, I listened again, I listened to every one of these things in a binge method. I just didn't quit listening.
We appreciate you so much.
And I text Corey like, man, you're freaking Digging Deep podcast was amazing, and he's like, oh man, he's kind of got that all shucks thing, but
he's California cool.
Yeah, he is California cool. I've been to Glamis with him, by the way. I've been fortunate enough to go to Glamis with Corey, and it's just so many great people in the ATV motocross world.
It's amazing. How cool is that? Like I said, I love how you keep those connections. You've continued to represent those sponsors that, supported Dalton back in the day, and just that whole precedence I just love so much. But Clay, man, this has been so enjoyable for me. I can't thank you enough for doing this, by the way. I want to hit you with one last question before we get you out of here, taking way too much of your time already. But 6-time IHRA world champion.
There we go.
Are not, we're gonna have to update that SSI ad read now that I know, but you've forgotten more about racing than most of us will ever know. So give my listeners, possibly young racers out there, a little advice that you'd want to offer from all that you've learned through your years of racing and dedication in the sport. Just a parting motivational or a parting message, a parting something for my listeners.
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I tell this a lot all the time, and I know you have in a roundabout way. So my mama always told people that you got to have the want to. And, people would ask her all the time, how's Clay did this or whatever, and she was certainly proud of me, and she always said, you got to have the want to. And so what she meant by that, and believe me, we talked about it a lot. You gotta, if there is something you want, I don't care what it is. For me, it was to drive a top fuel dragster. Yep. That was what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do it so badly. And this applies to everybody listening. If you want to do something, you got to want it so bad that you're willing to give up whatever else it may be, whether it be, a cool new truck to drive or the latest, greatest shoes or whatever. Yep. And focus on what it is you want to do. I mean, I'm the perfect example. I wanted to do it. I raced locally. I chased it. I wanted to do it. My parents didn't have money. I grew up in a little tiny grocery store, and they did all they could to help me. No different than the motocross parents listening right now. But if their kid wants to be Chad Wienen. They want to be Joel Hetrick. They want to be Jeffrey Rastrelli, whatever the case may be. If that is truly what they want to do, and maybe they don't end up being that person. Maybe they end up being Cody Jansen, who lived his dream and rode pro, but has turned it into one of the greatest podcasts, informing people of all these great stories that they're missing out. If you want it bad enough that you're willing to give up some of the things that your friends and buddies are doing that you can't, or you could, but you don't want to give up the time to spend on going to the mall, going to the movie. Instead, I saw Dalton on a punching bag, or I saw Dalton wearing plastic garbage bags in the Tennessee heat, running up and down the neighborhood around here, sweating his brains out because he wanted to be able to be fast as Tyler Hamrick. Mm-hmm. You know, it's easy for me to tell people, you just got to truly want it more than anything else, maybe even sometimes breathing, because I was 30 something years old before I got the opportunity to drive a top fuel dragster, but I never stopped. I had a wife, I had kids, and I still wanted it. And I continued chasing it. I was a 30 something year old rookie when it happened,
but you made it happen.
You can make it happen.
Exactly.
And for you, I know you wanted to be, Doug Gust. That's your guy. I know that's your guy.
That's my guy.
Your guy. Well, it didn't happen, but look where that has taken you. This truly, I believe, just again, I've listened to every one of them. This is what you were supposed to be doing, telling these stories, saving the history of a really cool sport, because there are so many great stories to be told out there. There's so many great people that are involved, and you continue to do that. You brought me back to something that I kept up with, but I now know, the Bryce Fords and the Nick Janusas and the kids that I don't actually know anymore, because the sport is ever evolving, and you brought me back to that. So you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that greatly. I feel the same way. I mean, I'm more happy about my racing career today than I was, 5 years ago or 4 years ago or whatever it was when I stepped away from the pro class, because at that time it was like I was ashamed, it was like I had goals. I thought I was going to do, whatever, and I never got there. It was like I under accomplished.
But you did get there. You did ride in the pro class, and you did that.
And I agree. But at that time, that's the way I felt. It was like I never lived up to what was expected, what other people expected of me. And now I realize much more, because I'm so much more aware, because I sit and have these conversations with people with different paths than me, whether they were more accomplished or less accomplished or whatever it was. And I realized, like, that's just part of it. And you're exactly right. Like, that's how I feel, that I needed to have that path. I needed to have trials and tribulations. I needed to be able to be a pro, to race with those guys, to experience those things, to be able to do what I do now. And I don't claim to be a professional at this whole thing, but I love the stuff that we're churning up, these stories that we're going to get lost in time. Guy after guy tells me, I didn't think I was going to get a chance to tell this story. I thought, it's just been a memory for all this time. Or all the people, like you just said, that they got drugged back into the sport from listening to this stuff. They lost the sport. They got away from it, somehow started listening, and now they're back in it. Now they want to buy a quad, or they're, following the races. And my other thing was, like, I think I told you this before we hit record on this an eon ago, but Dalton and I were similar pros. Like, we were, middle of the pack or whatever. We weren't setting the world on fire, but those are the guys that, with our race coverage in our fantasy game now, is naturally making people, naturally making people follow that more, every racer. But I'm trying to give more coverage to the guys out there, because just because you're not winning, just because you're in 10th or you're in 12th or you're in 13th, doesn't mean that you don't have an awesome story to tell.
Yep.
And
100%.
because, there's there's people out there, and hopefully like some of this awareness that I'm able to have, like, hey, like there's nothing wrong with getting, you know, an 8th in the pro class and being stoked about it.
Yep.
No, I didn't listen to anybody say that. And the fact that we're able to say that now, and hopefully I can be that bug in somebody's ear, reach for the stars, but it's okay. Like, it's okay. And I appreciate, I mean, obviously I appreciate all the kind words that you've stated here with my stuff. I appreciate you so much for listening. But I mean, man, I
want to interrupt you for 1 second.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You, Dalton, Tyler, like I say, y'all kind of had the similar pro thing. Had the money still been there, it might have been a different world for you guys.
It would have. Yeah.
You know, but I want you to think about, and please help me say the gentleman's name from overseas, Jimenez.
Cesar Jimenez. Yep.
Think about that guy. That guy he would love to have been able to do what you have done and what Tyler's done, what Dalton did, you know. This guy had to move across the world, you know, and live in somebody else's house that he don't know, you know. Exactly. And this is, you know, so you should always be proud, like, hey, I did do that, you know. And this guy, you know, he got to do it too, but it's because of guys like you that I bet you he probably might be going through a little bit of similar thing. Like, I'm not doing good as I want to do, but eventually he'll go like, holy crap, I moved across the world and I got to do it.
Exactly.
You got to do it. Dalton got to do it. Tyler got to do it. You know, not everybody does.
Right. And again, not that, you know, only one guy gets to win. Only 3 guys get to make the podium or whatever. But no matter what place you're finishing, no matter what class you race, doesn't matter, you know, pro class, C class, whatever. These are still like the days you're going to think about, you know, when you're later in life. These are still going to be the stories you tell. This is still going to be something you're very proud of. I don't know.
You're going to talk about having 3 flats coming home from Unadilla.
Exactly. And it's all those stories too. It's not just the race stuff. It's all our best friends that we made at the racetrack. I mean, it's all of that. It's all tied together. It's just the best times of our lives.
100%. Big Eddie's brand new Dodge truck breaking down, and we had to pull him off to the side so people could get off, and he stayed there for a week till his truck got fixed, you know, stuff like that. Those are the family stories that are right here in your heart all the time.
You're exactly right. What a great way to end this. Clay, I can't thank you enough for doing this. You're a legend. I'm so grateful that you were willing to spend this time with us and tell Dalton's story, talk a little bit about your career too. This has just been so much fun. I didn't even know you were a listener of ours. So this is that much more surreal for me, but I can't thank you enough for doing this. This was so awesome.
Well, it has been an absolute blast, and we have so many things in common. And there's one last thing I got to mention that we have in common, and that is Valvoline. That is one we also have in common. Yeah.
And I thought that, and I wasn't going to bring it up because I wasn't absolutely sure, but I was almost certain. And I think that's why the Valvoline guys are like, wait, you know Clay? And I'm like, well, if we knew each other now because of Digging Deep stuff or whatever. But at the time I'm like, well, I don't know if I say, like, if he hears my name, I don't know if he'll know who I am, but like, I know him, like I'm connected to him. So it's funny.
This has been an absolute freaking blast. Again, I feel sorry for Dallas. I don't know. We've probably been on there for 4 hours now, 3 hours, whatever it is, but it's been so much fun. And, you know, and I truly do, you know, obviously I miss my kid, but I enjoy going back and thinking about some of those things. And at the same time, you know, I got to be honest, I hate the ones I missed, but it's our life, you know, our life is on the road and racing and, you know, but him and his mama, you know, they got to experience all of them. I told her, you need to be here for this. And she's like, nope, you're the talker of the family, kind of like Dalton, you know, he's the talker. So, what an amazing show you have. Thank you so much for letting me come on. And I was truly pumped up while I was binge listening. I get an Instagram, you know, direct thing that it was you reaching out. I'm like, holy crap, that's crazy.
That's again, hey, it's there's no coincidences. It was the way it was supposed to go. But Clay, exactly right. I can't thank you enough. Again, I appreciate your time so much. You've been so gracious. Good luck the rest of the season here. The entire ATV racing community is pulling for you. And man, just can't thank you enough, pal.
I so much appreciate it. And this upcoming week, Mr. Mike Walsh will be hanging out with me at the Gator Nationals.
Yes. Give us some pictures on Instagram. That's what we want to see.
Doubt that will happen. So Mike Walsh will be hanging out with me, and me and Donna, and I don't think it's going to just not going to work out, but we are slightly thinking about what's coming up on Tuesday.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
But I don't know if we can pull it off, but
Okay.
we're definitely talking about it.
Okay. Well, keep us up to date. We'd like to meet up.
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Clay. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, buddy.
That's a wrap with Top Fuel Nitro dragster pilot Clay Millican right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Thank you, sir. Man, I laughed, I cried, and through it all, I had a blast, and I hope you did too. That was amazing. Clay Millican is amazing, and I feel like I made a friend tonight. What an honor. And what an honor it was to talk so much about Dalton Millican, a young man who so many people, so many of you truly enjoyed. Major thanks to tonight's featured guest, NHRA superstar Clay Millican. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to all of our donors. You know who you are. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all of our partners, CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Lauderdale Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Integrated Financial Concepts and their Safe to Race and Safe to Ride insurance programs, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, Blenzall Oil, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, and Manscaped. Get 20% off with free shipping by using code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support all the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find it all on our website, and be sure to click those Rocky Mountain ATVMC and Amazon banners for all your gear and parts needs, everyday needs, and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. Our show merchandise is available at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out. And if you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. Give us a call using our voicemail line. Give us your reaction to the show, the races, and or everything in between, so we can play them on the show and react to what you have to say. The number is 920-569-3519, and we want to hear from you, so give us a call. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff as the 2022 season has now begun. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy Season is here, and it's not too late to get in on all the prizes, the bragging rights, and all of the fun. So if you haven't done so yet, head over to atvfantasy.com to sign up now. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Clay Millican, Brooke Catherine, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen, thanks for listening to and making us the #1 podcast in ATV racing with over 145,000 downloads monthly in 84 total countries. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.